Thank you so much for joining, Gus, and taking the time to speak with us. We're really excited about this.
Thanks, man. It's great to be with you guys. I've heard part of Wally Walker's and a lot of all of Barry Parkhill's, and can't wait to be with you. And I'm going to take this mask off. I just wanted to present it early because the Legends of Basketball, which is the NBA Retired Players Association, sent everybody these masks, and I received mine in the mail today.
That's really cool.
So I'm ready for a second wave.
We know it's coming, and we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And as you know, this is UVA podcast, and I've read all about you. You're the first player to leave early for the pros out of Virginia, and let's not start there. Actually, let's start a little before that. The first time you heard of Virginia, heard from Virginia, I know you're in that area where there's a bunch of guys that were already going to UVA and the coaches, and we heard Wally and the guys talk about. I'd love to hear it from you. How did you hear about UVA?
I heard about Virginia when I was a sophomore in high school, and Jim Hobgood was 2 years older than me. And he was a senior and I was a sophomore. We were both starting on the Laurel Highlands High School basketball team. And he was being recruited very heavily by Duke in North Carolina and Davidson at that time when Lefty Driesell was there. And he ended up going to Virginia. And I got to meet the coaches then when they were recruiting Jimmy, because they would see him play and they saw me play as a sophomore, and they showed interest in me then. Well, they had me come to their basketball camp at Gettysburg, and I know Barry had went there too at Park Hill at some point, and the UVA coaches held their camp there. And I went there for 5 straight weeks between my sophomore, junior, and senior years in high school. And I washed dishes in the sink of the camp, and that paid for my stay there. And I was there 5 weeks each summer and got to know those coaches so well. And even though I was being recruited by a lot of schools, east and west of Mississippi, really all over, but like especially hard for Maryland and Duke and like Pitt and Duquesne and schools around here in Michigan and Kansas, out west, Midwest. And I fell in love with the coaches from Virginia. They kind of, took me under their wing, and Hobgood had went to UVA. So they pretty much put a monopoly on me. I was real close to going to North Carolina, and Dean Smith came up for few times during my senior year and took me out, and it was really hard. But Coach Gibson was at my house, good Lord, half my senior year probably, and his
That's
assistant,
awesome.
Chip Connor, and he would grab my arm when the phone would ring, and it would be other coaches. Back then it was all dial-up, there was no cell phones, so the phone would ring and it'd be Lefty Driesell or it'd be Dean Smith, and he'd stand there, and my mom would go, "Hey, Dan, it's a Coach Smith from North Carolina on the phone," and so Dan is my parents. That's my legal name. Everybody at home calls me that. But Coach Gibson would start twisting my arm and like trying to almost break my arm if I would talk to him. So I'd say, "Coach, I got to go right now. I'll see you." So they weren't going to let me get away from going to UVA. That's for sure. And
so we're a couple of years away from when you played in college. So do you have any interesting recruiting stories in terms of what players may have been offered back then? Was a lot of that going on, or not necessarily?
What players were offered?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was
Wild West in the 70s.
It got crazy after that. But see, we had unlimited visits back then.
Yeah.
So you could go to one school three times if you wanted to visit. There was no one visits on a special weekend or nothing. I mean, They start you off with that, but then they bring you back, and it's when they bring you back visits. Now, I must tell you that UVA was clean as a whistle back then.
Of course.
Now, I've played with a lot of guys in the NBA who went to schools like I've named that were recruiting me that told me whole different stories. Right. So I was offered $10,000 cash in a shoebox from a local school here. I was offered a car from another one. And
is their nickname the Panthers? I'm just kidding.
Let's just say they were in the tri-state area, West Virginia and Ohio area.
Now, was there a part of you that was like, well, maybe I should seriously consider that, or was it your connection with UVA was strong enough where you're just like, I don't want.
My connection with UVA was strong enough. Plus, there was no Big East back then, so. They were all independents, most of them, and I wanted to play in the ACC.
So nowadays, there's obviously this one and done rule, and prior to that, guys just went straight to pro. But in your time, the first years did not play the varsity team. Was that a factor in your decision where you could go and you thought you could go to UVA and learn for that first year? Is that kind of where your head was?
Yeah, I wanted to play. I knew we had to play freshman ball, was called back then, and
Right.
first year ball. And we had a really good team on my freshman team. And the nice thing about it is we'd play the games before the varsity would. And that was the year the varsity had their best year in a long time and was ranked when Barry was a junior.
Right.
And so we would play to nice crowds, sellout crowds. Our first year games were always in front of sellout crowds because they were so anxious to see Virginia, who was really good then, and Barry especially. So it was great. Terry Truax was my freshman coach. It was his first year at Virginia. He came from as an assistant at North Carolina, so it kind of made me feel at home. He said, "I couldn't get you to come to Carolina, but I got you as a freshman or first yearman here at Virginia." And
he came to you.
Yeah, and so we had a really nice freshman team. North Carolina's freshmen and Maryland's freshmen were loaded, and Duke had a good team, and we beat all of them, but they beat us. We beat Maryland twice. We beat North Carolina at our place, and they beat us in Chapel Hill. And Duke we beat one or two times. And the only team we didn't beat was NC State because they had David Thompson, Monty Tao, Phil Spence, I think, was on that team. And they just had Tim Stoddard that played Major League Baseball, too, that went through the championship years with NC State.
Wow.
And David. They were the only team we didn't beat was DT, my guy, David Thompson.
Yeah, he was quite a threat back then.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Mike Lewis, Mikey Surf on Twitter, DM'd us right when we started these, and he was like, "You gotta talk Gus Gerrard," and his thing was he was the Dr. J for UVA in terms of skill and jumping ability. And I've heard you say this before. You think you got your jumping ability as a kid from riding bikes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you were kind of a late bloomer. At what point did you realize your athleticism was a little different than everyone else?
Probably my sophomore year in high school. And excuse me a second. And my sophomore year in high school, where I grew up in this town of Uniontown, the playground system was really booming then. And Uniontown High School itself had a history of like many state championships in football, basketball, and track and field. And Laurel Highlands, the school that Jimmy and I went to, Hobgood, formed from two smaller schools and made Laurel Highlands. So we competed with the Union towns in those schools back then. But in the summer on the playgrounds, there was so much talent and so many Division I players from this area that had went away to college, and pros like Stu Lance and Chuck Muncie, who played football, but also was a great basketball player. We played in the summertime, in the summer leagues, and sometimes myself and one of my other teammates, we might be the only white guys on the playground playing up at East End. And if you didn't learn how to play above the rim and run and dunk and block shots, you didn't last very long up there. So, I knew I had good jumping ability because I could always jump and I could dunk by the end of my freshman year. And so it just took me over. I was a late bloomer as far as guys nowadays are concerned, but that's the year I really came on, my sophomore year, and really turned into a, above the rim player with kind of different moves for a white guy than most people had seen for sure around here.
So
who were the guys you looked up to growing up playing basketball when you really decided to be a basketball player? Was it college guys, NBA guys? I think Dr. J's a couple of years older than you.
Yeah.
Not significantly, so you wouldn't know who he was maybe.
The only way I knew who Dr. J was a guy graduated from my high school in 1967, the first year that we became a high school. And he went to UMass and played with Dr. J. And he came back home and would play against us high school kids in the summertime. And he told us, "Hey, I'm playing with this guy in Massachusetts that you won't believe. I can't even tell you stories about him, but all I can tell you is they call him Dr. J, and you will never see anything like him, and he's only a freshman. And, God bless you if you ever get the chance to play against him." And so I did know about Dr. J, and but I looked up to the guys from this area, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Will Robinson is an All-American went to West Virginia from my high school. But is one of their leading scorers of all time. Played in the ABA. And Buzzy Harrison, first Division I scholarship to Pitt full time. Hobgood, of course, to Virginia. Ray Yager to Clemson. I mean, we had guys that were going D1 all the time. So those guys from my high school and the rival high school that played at D1s were my heroes growing up. In the pros, I liked Havlicek because my dad liked him. And,
Yes.
my dad was kind of one got me interested in basketball because he loved Havlicek and the Celtics so much.
Well, I don't know if you know, but my classmate, my year, and my roommate was Chris Havlicek, his son.
Oh, is that right?
So my 4 years, we were with the Havliceks a lot, and really special family. And obviously, you think it's just your buddy's dad, but then you go and look at everything
Right.
he did. And of course, I read his biographies and stuff growing up, trying to be like those guys. So
Yeah. You talk about a nightmare trying to guard somebody. Try chasing him around for a whole
he never stopped moving.
I think one time they put they put like one of them things that count mileage or strapped it around his ankle or something to see how far he ran in the game. It was like 9 miles or something. It was something crazy and ridiculous.
Right.
That no one would ever think
Those things that they used to move on when you ran, right? They'd snap against your body.
Right. Yeah.
So then let's just go back to your UVA second year now that you're playing. And you had an incredible, I guess that was your first stint on the varsity squad. What was that like for you? Do you remember the feeling around grounds?
Yes. There was tremendous excitement because everybody had hoped that I could play as a freshman, that rule was going to be brought in my year. Excuse me.
All right.
Allergies are bad today. And everybody thought that rule might hit right before I enrolled. So after I had such a great first year, there was a lot of excitement for second year. Plus it was going to be Park Hills and Hobgood's senior year.
All right.
And they were coming off that great year. So there was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, we were a bunch of guys who really, other than Barry and Hobgood, the other three guys didn't really play together very much. And Wally Walker came in as a freshman that year, and that's a year you could play first year.
Right.
So we had Wally and myself starting at forwards, who, along with Barry, we had never played with Barry before. And, but we lost some games we should have. NC State was tremendous back then, to be honest with you. And Maryland was very good. But I held my own. I had to play center a lot. That was the only thing, and I was 6'7", and I was playing against my junior year, my second year, Tree Rollins, and guys like Tom McMillan and Bobby Jones, and so I was kind of undersized, but I could hold my own because of my above the rim ability.
So how was your relationship with Coach Gibson? I know was it tricky because of that? Like, did you guys talk about, I don't want to play center, or did you just do whatever the team needed?
No, I just wanted to play wherever he stuck me. I would be fine. Now we did have some guys that started, maybe would start the game as center, but then they would come out quick, and I would move over from, would bring in another forward, like a power forward to go with Wally, and I would have three forwards basically a lot of the time.
What happens in 1974 or whatever? Am I right? The year 1974. If Gus Gerrard and Wally Walker play 1-on-1, what's that game look like?
A whole lot of scoring from both.
Not much. Yeah.
Wally was a tremendous player, but I think because of maybe the playgrounds, Wally grew up more in the gym and honed his skills in the gyms because he had a knee issue. So he didn't want a chance on playing outdoors a lot.
Right.
Because of the outdoor kind of tricks I knew from the playground stuff, I think maybe I would have taken Wally, but
have got him.
I would 10 games, it'd probably be 5-5, to be honest with you.
You guys must have had some great practice battles and stories.
Oh, yeah. We had some great – the battles really were like at the Memorial Gym and stuff, and like off seasons and things like that. The old gym, the rims were so soft. I swear to you, it was one of those gyms where if you got hot, every ball you shot felt like it was going in. There was a summer league game I played in there. I had 77 in the game.
God.
And I don't think I missed but one shot the whole game. And it was about 100 degrees in there. And we played. And I lost about 12 pounds during the game. And I'll tell you another guy who never missed at that gym was Barry Parkhill. When I was being recruited, I'll go jump back a step. And when I was being recruited, one of the coaches took me down where the guys, they were playing pickup in Old Memorial Gym.
Uh-huh.
And he said, come on down, the guys are playing ball. Well, I had jeans on, a pair of low-cut Pro Keds they gave me in the Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic and in high school. And I had my jeans on and a shirt of some kind. And they were all playing half court at Memorial Gym. Park Hill, DeWitt, Bill Gary was there, Larry Gary. You know, Bill Gary was the graduating center. He had graduated, I think, the year before that, and he was like 6'11" or something. And there were some pretty big dudes in there. And they asked me if I wanted to play. Barry did, I believe. And I said, well, I said, I'll just run one game with us. So I went out there in my blue jeans and low cuts. I don't even think I had socks on. And I ended up probably having about 3 straight games with the team I got on one. And I had a couple dunks over the back of my head and like scored probably most of the points in all the games. And they stopped, and Barry came over to me after the game and kind of put his arm around me and said, son, I don't know where you're going to school, but you better come here. He said, I want to play with you. And he was so happy. It made me feel good at that time too, because I knew like Bill Gary had graduated and he had been their starting center. And he was the guy guarding me a lot, and I kind of held my own against him. So it gave me a lot of confidence right then as a guy coming in.
That's awesome.
So when you came, your time at school, you came in, and there was no real adjustment period to the talent or to the basketball court, right? You fit in right away and
I did. Yeah, I kind of did. I wasn't afraid of anybody because who I played against on the playgrounds here, to be honest with you, and in Pittsburgh. So nobody's, when we played NC State my first year, down at NC State, Coach Truax came in before the game and said, because we had a pretty good team, we may be undefeated at that time. He said, well, I got to tell you, and he knew about David because he recruited him, but a lot of people didn't at that time because he was, they kind of tried to keep it quiet in North Carolina so they could keep him in state. And he said, I got to tell you, we're playing a guy tonight called David Thompson, call him DT. He said, he jumps about the top of the backboard, maybe a little higher. We all looked at him and said, yeah, right. And he said, if we can hold him under 50, we got a chance. And so we went out and played the game and said, well, I've never even heard it because I played in the Dapper Dan, which was a USA All-Stars against United States All-Stars against Pennsylvania All-Stars back when there was only one big game in high school, and that was the Dapper Dan Round Ball Classic in Pittsburgh. And Sonny Vaccaro ran that. And so we went down there and they beat us. It was a fairly close game, but David and I had a really good game against him. And I don't think he saw many guys that played like I did because I remember Dan Bonner from Virginia taking a shot from the corner and David catching it at its apex, like in between Dan and the basket somewhere, just shot straight up like a jumping jack trampoline and swatted it into the crowd. And I knew he was waiting for me because I'd been scoring a lot around the basket. And he came over one time from the weak side to get me, and I went up, and he went up, and I never released it. I just hung up there, and he came down, and I still kind of had enough up there to lay it over him. And he looked at me and he kind of winked and smiled and he knew right then that I had a different kind of game, and we were friends from that minute.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
And so you've been on record, or you've been on a few interviews talking about your recovery from addiction, in the battles you've had with that. And I remember reading, you said you could pinpoint to where at UVA is where kind of you started to realize, oh, you may have an issue. When was that point? Like, how did that intertwine with basketball back at that part?
Here's the deal, guys. Back in the 70s, marijuana, the Vietnam War had ended. There was marijuana, all that stuff was in play from the 60s still. Mm-hmm. I started smoking a little pot in high school, drank maybe a beer now and then at a senior dance out in the football field bleachers or something, but I never did anything crazy. And I got to UVA, and there was a party all the time, and I like to meet people and party. So, we would be invited to all fraternity parties because you didn't have to be a member. They just tried to recruit you or whatever. You just might have had a friend there that was, a pledge there or a member, and they would invite you to every party they had. And so there was a different party to go to, and I built. I was one of them guys that I started to drink beer more and started to smoke pot more now. And you have this tendency though to feel bulletproof because you're in such great shape. I mean, you're so young, and it was like no big deal. Like we weren't under a bridge drinking wine with, homeless. Although, basically that's where I ended up at one point. I never really thought I had a problem. I kind of knew deep down inside that maybe I was going to extremes, but so many other people were doing it at that time that I felt like part of instead of not a part of. And I'm just an addict somewhere. I just thought if I'm an addict, everybody else must be around here. And
it's also one thing if you see, a regular person drinking and partying, whatever, but you're doing it with all Americans and professional athletes. So it's a different thing, right? Like, when I grew up, I thought if I drank or smoked weed or whatever, I wasn't going to get to my height of 6'1". I wasn't going to grow. So I never did it. But then, like you're saying, in college, this guy's going to the NBA and he's having fun, nothing crazy, but and you could do what you wanted, go to practice the next day, go to the game, no problem when you're 20 years old.
Right. And where I really crossed over was in professional basketball, not so much during the seasons, but in the off seasons, a lot of partying. And then when my career was over, that's when it really took off. When I was still getting paid deferred money from my last contract I had signed. I was still getting paid for not playing anymore. I had deferred money for 5 more years coming in. So, and by then I was ready to party. I moved back to Charlottesville and we had a home and had a pool and all that. And a lot of the UVA guys would come to my house. Of course, I kept my whole little private life secret from them. And when Coach Holland coming out there and kicking me in the butt or something with his guys that were hanging out in my pool, but we never did any of that stuff out there. And I had my own secret world that I lived in, and a couple guys that I'm sure you all know, but I won't mention, were my buddies, and we hung out, and that's when I crossed over, when I had too much time, too much money, and I wanted to be the first one to party and the last one to leave. And, all it did was a spiral downhill, just a typical story you guys hear every day about this. And, you spiral downhill and you end up in 3 places. You end up in jail, you end up in and out of treatment centers or institutions, or you end up dead. Luckily for me, it was a trip to Houston to see John Lucas and go to treatment in '93 to straighten me out for the rest of my life.
So would you say when you were at UVA, you got Rugby Road, you have a lot of temptations. Did basketball help you in that sense? Could you imagine, like, if it wasn't for basketball, maybe you're doing that more than anything?
Yeah, because we did have to work out for basketball, and we did love to play. Even in the off season, we played a lot. So none of that stuff happened then. It definitely helped me. But you know what? It also gave me this alter ego kind of thing. In order to reach the highest level in basketball, like Ralph and Wally and a lot of guys and myself and Matt, which was the NBA, highest level. To get to that level, you have to have another switch where you become ego. Okay. Superman. You have to go walk on a court thinking, I don't care who that is. First time I played Dr. J, I was waiting to play him. I'd seen him play in Virginia and Richmond and Norfolk and those places. And I knew he was one of my heroes when I got to see him play when I was at UVA. And I patterned my game a lot after him, a lot of one-handed finger rolls and dunks and run and jump and play like that. And it just kind of lost track. Where I was going on this? I'm sorry.
No, you said you had the confidence when you went up against him.
Oh yeah, you develop this ego, okay, and this edge that you don't care who you're playing against. You flip the switch. I'm as good as they are.
Right.
Okay. Right. So I flipped that same switch and that confidence gave me an ego that I learned that ego for me is edging God out, EGO. So I became more important really than God in my mind and stuff, and shut out that spiritual part of my life. And that's when I lost control. And until I got that back, I could start to heal.
Gotcha. So sorry to keep obviously always bring it back to Virginia. I was going to say your third year, your last year, you're averaging 20 and 10, playing in everyone says is the best conference in the country at that point, best players. Where, like, what are you thinking during the year? Like, are you already thinking about leaving, going to the NBA, or are you just concentrating on your time at school?
I started thinking about the NBA around the ACC tournament time.
Okay.
To be honest with you, and just because Barry was in the ABA Park Hill, and they had been, I knew his agent that he had, and his agent had been in contact with me and told me there were some teams interested in me, and so it kind of put the bug in my ear. Then in the ACC tournament in the first round, we played against Tree Rollins, and I was playing center, and he was 7'1", and of course went on to play in the NBA for many years. And I think I had 39 points and like 19 rebounds in the game against Tree. And after that game, I knew that would probably be my last ACC tournament. I sprained my ankle towards the end of that game, and we played NC State the next game, and they beat us by 20, probably 18 or 20, and that was it for my career then. There's a lot more to that before I signed, though, that went on before I made the actual move that happened. If you want me to go into that now.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's hear. So end of the last game, and then what happens at that point?
Is this
go back to school, and school ends, of course, in the springtime. But that summer, Coach Holland replaced Coach Gibson, who went to South Florida.
All right.
Okay.
Coach Holland came in, and I got kind of worried. I never really had to sit down with him, really, to be honest with you, and I probably should have. And he told me that, if you stay until your senior year, you'll have both leagues, the NBA and the ABA, bidding for you instead of just the ABA. Well, in the meantime, I said, okay, let me think about that, Coach. And I got picked to play on the USA, on the World Games. In between the Olympics, every 4 years, they have the World Games, USA World Games. And I was one of the 11 guys picked to play on the USA team. So I went on, played on the team with John Lucas and Quinn Buckner and a whole bunch of guys. We lost to the Russians, I believe, in the gold medal. Yeah, we got the silver medal, and I can remember partying with those Russian guys after that game. But anyway, that's
where was that?
It was in Puerto Rico at the Roberto Clemente Coliseum, which was kind of cool because he was my hero growing up for baseball with the Pirates
awesome.
nearby in Pittsburgh. But anyway, when I came back from that tournament, the Carolina Cougars had drafted me in an undergraduate draft, and they had folded and were bought out. They had offered me $300,000, $100,000 a year for 3 years. I went down and met with the owner. He owned Frito-Lay and Coca-Cola plants in Atlanta. I forget what his name was, but he was the owner of the Coca-Cola thing. He took me all around, and he was trying to convince me not to take the money, really to wait, because he thought I could get more the following year. And he said, if you want to come, we'll sign you. And they offered me $300,000 for 3 years. Well, I never had more than $20 in my pocket the whole time up until that point. And so I went back because I played so well in the World Games. There were so many scouts there from the NBA and ABA. I have to believe I was the leading scorer. If not, I was tied or close second. Played just a fantastic tournament and got a lot of recognition. And what happened was Carolina folded then, and Spirits of St. Louis, the wildest team ever, and they bought the owners bought the team and moved it to St. Louis and called it the Spirits of St. Louis. And they had my draft rights. And these guys that bought the team, Harry Weltman, Ozzie Silna, Don Silna, and Donnie Shupak, they would love basketball. They were all from New York, New Jersey, and they wanted a team. They wanted an NBA team. And so they went to St. Louis and they signed myself. No, first of all, I got to back this up. I went to New York to meet. It was still in the summer. And I remember Nixon was getting impeached. All that was going on. And I flew up to New York to meet with my agent because he said, you need to come up here because the new owners of the new team to have your rights want to meet with you. And I said, all right. And so I went up to New York, and one of my friends, Andrew Benetti, you remember Andrew who played in Charlottesville? He's a realtor there now, big real estate guy. But he had a funky New York, I used to call him City. In fact, Ty Jerome reminded me of Andrew, but Ty was obviously went further in his career, but Andrew's very successful in real estate. I called Ty, went to the TV. I used to call him City just like Andrew because he had that funky. Andrew worked in the summers, worked at Shea Stadium up there for the Mets. And so he picked me up at the airport, and we went over to hang out at Shea Stadium a while until it was time to go to the agent's office. And while we're at Andrews, he gets a call from Coach Holland, and he's going, I'm looking for Gus. There's rumors that he's up in New York. Andrew, do you by chance know where he is? And Andrew's going, it's Coach Holland. It's Coach Holland. What do you want me to say? Tell him I'm not here. Tell him I'm not here. I'll tell him when I get back what happens. And he said, I don't know where he's at, Coach. He hasn't called me. And so we went over and I met with the owners of the Spirits of St. Louis, my agent. And they come out of the room, and they said, okay, we're willing to offer you $950,000 for 5 years and a $75,000 signing bonus if you leave now. And that was like a little over $1 million, and it was guaranteed by them personal ownership from the owners. I wasn't like a league. It was a league contract, but I had a personal guarantee from the owners because I had some leverage about going back to Virginia. Okay. But they wanted to sign me because they had just signed Marvin Barnes for, and he was the number 1 or 2 pick in the NBA draft. And they signed Bad News Marvin, and they signed myself. And then they got Maurice Lucas from Marquette, who ended up being, the original enforcer. And that was our rookie front line, all rookie start. And so when they came out with $950,000 plus $75,000 signing bonus, and they'll write me the check that night, I said, I signed. I didn't call nobody, my parents, and not. And Andrew's looking at me like, you better take that.
He's like, you're buying the pizza tonight, by the way.
Oh, yeah. This is hilarious. You got to listen to this. So I flew up to New York, but I still didn't have any money at that time. Okay. So I just signed this contract for a little over $1 million. And Andrew and I were driving back to Charlottesville, and we get in his car, and we start leaving the city, and he realizes, oh, you got gas, right? You got gas? I said, Andrew, I ain't got no money. I got $5 on me. We can't get back to Charlottesville. I said, I got a check for $75,000 though right here. We had to stop at the payphone and call my agent. And he said, come on back. And we went back to the city, and he gave us like $1,000, gave me $1,000 cash. He said, no. I said, I'll pay you back. He said, oh, I know you will. And so we had money to go back to Charlottesville. And then, of course, everybody hit the news wires back then. Hey, Mark, how you doing, man?
I see. How are you?
So Gus, did you physically have a $75,000 check in your pocket, but not
in
a
my
penny?
wallet? Oh yeah,
oh my gosh.
Daniel Gerrard, $75,000.
Should have gone to pay what's that thing called, the check cash.
So I went back to Charlottesville, opened up a bank account, and first thing I did was go home, visit my parents, and I went down and paid off their mortgage at the local bank that they owed on the house, and bought my dad a pickup truck. And my mom didn't drive. I'm kind of glad because I'd have to buy her something, a car.
I'm texting you Ty's number right now.
Oh, are you? Does he know me?
No, for you to give a hint and tell that story that you paid off his mortgage and bought him a car.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Ty. This is how it works, Ty.
Okay. Mark, I gotta tell you, I loved watching your son play. I did. He reminded me, I don't know if you were on the air with us, you had a kid named Andrew Benetti who came out of Marty Christie High School. He's in Charlottesville, and he had the funkiest city game, man. He had all the shakes there, and Ty just had that New Jersey, New York City game to me. And I was going to ask you this when I heard that you were also on the podcast. Did he play a lot of playground ball or not? Was it all in the gym like guys do nowadays?
No, grew up playing on the playground.
I knew it. I knew that's why I loved that kid.
From 5 years old.
Playground stuff in him. I knew it.
From 5 years old, Manhattan,
Uh-huh.
Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, all the toughest tournaments.
Yep.
Yeah.
I knew it. Very good.
That's awesome.
It was an honor to watch him play, man.
That change of pace, the rope a dope, herky jerk,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, ties, my guy. Love
I
it.
had to learn how to be creative.
So yeah, I bought them. I bought all my sisters and brothers something like a gold necklace or a watch or something, and then I paid off. I had gotten a car from a local dealership in Charlottesville before I actually went to the pros that summer, and it was kind of a car. They said you can pay me back when you sign in the pros,
Right.
and so immediately I went to the car dealership and paid it off, so there would be no.
What kind of car?
It was a Monte Carlo, and it was brand new, and it was like $3,400.
Wow.
Two door or four door?
It was two-door, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah, my mom had a Monte
What?
Carlo 2-door.
blue Monte Carlo.
What did your parents say when you told them that you were doing this?
Oh, they couldn't believe it. They were so. My mom was crying. She was crying her eyes. My dad was a truck driver. He worked so hard. He would come home at 5 or 6 at night and get up 4 or 5 in the morning and hit the road with that big tanker truck. And he, he'd rush to try to see a game of mine in high school or something, and got to see a couple college games as he kind of was winding down his driving career, and then got to see me play in the pros a couple of times before he died. And he got to see me play against the Celtics, and he got to see me, who Havlicek was his hero, and his final game. He came to Cleveland because we live about 3 hours from Cleveland in Pennsylvania, here in Pittsburgh. And he got to see me play, but he was very sick then. And we went out to dinner afterwards, and I bought him this big steak, and he couldn't even eat a bite of it. And I knew he was sick, but that was the last time I really saw him before he died, because I had to go back on the road and everything. But that was pretty cool experience, being able to do that for my family.
That's awesome.
And at what point, I was gonna say, what point did you tell Terry Holland that you weren't coming back, and what was that conversation like?
Stole my question.
It was like, Coach, they offered me this, and I decided to take it. And he said, I understand. He said, I know, I wish you would have stayed. I'd love to, to work with you. I think I could have helped you with some things. And I think he could have too, but I don't think I would have got the same stuff next year. And I was thinking, what happens if what happens if I get injured? Or I had that thought all the time. And I need to take this right now, because I can help my parents and I can set myself up for a while. And it was one of the biggest contracts given back then, by the way, too. I mean,
So at that point with the university, did you feel like I'm kind of like severing ties with them? Because obviously you're the first one to leave early. Was there a feeling of like, you don't belong here, or I don't belong there? I don't want to, I don't know. So like it's all good.
They welcomed me back with open arms. In the summer,
awesome.
Coach Holland's camps had me working at his camps, and
Graves?
those guys all, Graves Mountain Lodge, and he had one at U-Haul also, at University Hall. And that Graves Mountain Lodge was something else. But they welcomed me back. Maybe privately they said something else, but they never told me anything but, hey, we're really happy for you. This and that. The community seemed happy, built a home there, bought some land there and stuff, and lived there quite a few years.
Shit, Gus. They're probably trying to get their mortgage paid back. I heard about your story with your mom. Like, he's giving out cars, he's paying mortgages. Come on back, Gus. That's definitely
it was a great experience. I loved Charlottesville, and I loved the guys and camaraderie we had, and especially, I was only there for, my first year, second year, and third year, and I was gone. So I was around there a whole lot with the rest of the guys that came after me.
Right.
I became good. We played all the time with those guys because I was in the pros, and they were always playing pickup. So I would go join their games, Ivoroni and Fulton and all those guys. But they used to hate me playing. They didn't want me playing sometimes, because what would happen was they would bring a recruit in, or assign some, or actually have a scholarship player that they sign come in to be like 6'10" or 6'9", 6'11", and they would have to guard me. And Wally and Andrew and them kept saying, Coach Holland, you can't have Gus doing this. He said, why? He said, he's destroying all the confidence in all the guys you bring in. He said, constantly dunking on them and blocking their shots. And you gotta tell them, back off on these guys, or they're never going to think they can come here and play. And we kind of laughed about it. I used to give them all, talk trash to all of them, but just in a good way. I mean, afterwards we'd sit down and go down the corner and have a beer or something. And, you know, and they'd all want to, know things about the pros that was going on. And it was a great time for me because I got to know all them guys, Jeff Jones and Ralph and all of them came after me. Lamb,
you guys all set that culture, because when I was in school, Andrew Kennedy would come back, Ivoroni would come back. Mark Ivoroni's driving a Porsche around. Right. I have like a 1987 Jetta. I have to rig it to get started up, and had some money, and they took care of us, man, and taught us, worked out with us and taught us how to really play, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. You'd rather bring the pro game back, playing with these guys instead of playing against their high school buddies. So,
and plus,
very cool way to do
the facilities were there. By then, we were able to lift the weights, and the camps, the Graves camp and the University Hall camp were good because players from other schools would come as counselors, and you get to play against them.
Oh, that's awesome. I was going to say, so while first season away from Charlottesville, you're pro now. I mean, it's not like you can just turn on ACC Network and watch UVA games. How did you keep up with Virginia, or did you, or were you able to at all to pick up the pay?
I ordered the Daily Progress to be delivered to me in St. Louis. And they would come like 4 or 5 at a time, like once a week or twice a week. Right. And then I get to catch up on them. Of course, and I'd talk to people back in Charlottesville, but that's kind of how I followed them. Because, yeah, you're right. They weren't on TV. Back then there was no ESPN my first year and all that, and those years. And there weren't TNT or anything, or any other networks really, other than one game a week. There wasn't a lot of college basketball.
And the St. Louis era, there's a 30 for 30 documentary. I don't know if people will link it below for the people that haven't seen yours.
Absolute must watch.
Yeah.
If you care about basketball at all.
Free spirits.
Yeah. And you were a big part of that, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah.
But what I mean, obviously I feel like everyone has seen and covered a lot of that, but is there anything else in that era that you remember that you could share with us?
About St. Louis team?
Yeah, the St. Louis team.
Are you familiar with the book called Loose Balls by Terry Pluto?
I've heard of it, yes.
You got to get that book and read it. It tells all the stories about the ABA, including a chapter on the wildest team ever is the name of the chapter, and it's the Spirits of St. Louis. And I had the pleasure of playing with Marvin Barnes, who was one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life when he wasn't really high or didn't show up for the games. Maurice Lucas was one of the greatest. These were the guys I had beside me on the front line. I could run the floor and rebound. My first year, I averaged like almost 16 and 8, and Marvin averaged like 25 and 15 or something, and Luke averaged, like 15 and 15 or something. I mean, we had a strong front line. Those were my guys, my protectors. I had 2 enforcers. Here I was a skinny white kid, and I had these 2 brothers that would just don't mess with my boy. And but anyway, that team was so crazy because it was new, and we had so many characters on there. We also had a playground legend from New York City, and Mark, you may remember this. You may be still a little too young, but James Fly Williams from Brownsville.
Yeah.
Sad story.
Sad story. Yes, very sad. But back then, he was just the Fly from Austin P. The Fly's open, let's go P, the famous cheer when he was at Austin P College. And he could score. He literally could score on anybody. I saw him dunk on Artis Gilmore, who's 7-something, Fly's 6'5". He could score with anybody, but coach would call a play in the timeout at a crucial point in the game if Fly was in the game, and he'd get the ball and he'd just wave everybody off. He didn't care, and he was very hard to coach as a team player. And so he in his off the court stuff hit him a lot earlier than the other of us, and so he was gone the next year. But we also had a rookie, Jimmy Foster, on the team from Connecticut. So we had a lot of young players. Then we had veterans like Joe Caldwell, Jumpin' Pogo Joe, Steve Snapper Jones, who did ESPN for a long time.
Yeah.
And then we traded for Freddie Lewis at the beginning of the year from the Indiana Pacers, 3-time champion with them. Solid, steady guard, one of the best players I played with. Just controlled the game, could score, never panicked. And that was the year, by the end of that year, we didn't have a great year at all, but we started gelling at the end of that year. And the first round of the playoffs, we played the New York Nets and Dr. J and all those guys, Rich Jones, who else they have? Larry Keenan, I believe, and Billy Paltz, and Brian Taylor, Super John Williamson, maybe. Well, anyway, they had beaten us 11 times that year. We never beat them. And we got to the playoffs, and they beat us the first game, but we were winning at halftime by 16 on Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. And Freddie Lewis kept telling us we were in halftime. We were all of us rookies were in there like, yeah, we got this. And Freddie's trying to calm us down and tell us we don't have nothing. We got 30 minutes, and they got a guy named Dr. J over there. And sure enough, they came back and they beat us by 1 or 2 that game. And but we knew that kind of gave us confidence because Marvin and Maurice were beating the crap out of Dr. J. And he didn't know that because nobody would ever do that. And, nobody would ever think of doing that to the great doctor. And Marvin and Maurice didn't care. They would take your head off if you came through the lane. And I'd just sneak out on the break somewhere and avoid all that madness. But I had some great matchups with Dr. J. And we ended up winning the next 4 games straight. And Bob Costas was our announcer, the great Bob Costas from NBC Sports, legend, right out of Syracuse. He was our announcer, 21 years old. And the last game was the 5th game that we beat him in Long Island. We were down by 1, and we had a timeout. Dr. J dribbled the ball off his foot and went back court. And we went over to the sidelines, and Marvin's telling coach, there's like 8 seconds left in the game, and we have the ball at half court, and we're down by 1 with a chance to beat the Nets, defending champs. And we go to the bench, and Marvin's yelling, Coach, give me the ball. I need the ball right now, Coach. And Freddie looks at him and goes, Coach, you know where we're going. He said, Marvin, Freddie's going to handle this, because Freddie was the pro, 3-time All-Pro every year, 3-time champ with the Indiana Pacers. Freddie takes the ball. We just all spread out. He backs Brian Taylor down about a step or 2 above the free throw line, turns and flicks that little shot. I crashed from one side, Marvin from the other, and nobody blocked us. The chances are if he missed, one of us was dunking in a rebound. It didn't matter. It swished right in, and we went crazy. We beat the defending champion Nets after them beating us 11 times all straight during the year, and it was one of the biggest upsets in pro sports history. Believe me, people still talk about it to this game, till this day, about that series. 2 years of the St. Louis Spirits have now gotten more recognition than, people know more about that team than they do like the Charlotte Hornets or somebody. Right. It's amazing. The recognition. People come up to me all the time or send me stuff in the mail to sign from Spirits memorabilia and things like that. Still to this day. I just got something 2 days ago. In fact, I told my wife, I tease her because maybe once a month or once every 2 months, people send my card to me to get signed or a jersey or something. And you'll always have a returned envelope and all that. And I'll sign every one of them and send it back. And I told my wife, we got to do something for the postman. He's got to be getting mad with all this fan mail. When's it going to end? I'm going to be 67 years old in a couple of months. When's it going to end? We can't. What are we going to do? All this mail, sacks of mail coming in, and that's like one every 2 months.
Well, after this podcast, it's never going to end. Trust me.
It's never going to end.
I'm going to make sure.
Yeah. Expect a little bit more after this, I would say.
We're going to post your address, the whole thing. Get ready.
So at this point, did you and Barry overlap with St. Louis or no?
Right. Barry was at Virginia with the Squires. My rookie year, I was with St. Louis. Uh-huh. I thought Barry had a great chance. Barry didn't play much at all at Virginia that year. He was very disgruntled. I could tell he wasn't happy. He just didn't seem like the same guy when we would go out to dinner after the Squires and Spirits played a game. And so in the summer, I asked our owners, man, why don't you see if you can trade for Barry Parkhill? Because they said, yeah, we like Barry. He just doesn't get to play. And I said, yeah, and he was really disgruntled. You might be able to get him out of there. And Virginia was starting to struggle then financially a lot. And so we did. We traded for Barry that summer and got Barry. And him and I went into training camp and were roommates my second year. So how awesome was that to be hooked back up with Barry and be a second-year player? And then that year, though, I got traded to Denver to the Nuggets. Larry Brown, he had wanted me since really he was at the Carolina Cougars before they folded. And he went to the Denver Nuggets, and he traded for me during that year. And so I had to leave Barry. But Barry got the worst of the Spirits, to be honest with you, because after I left, they traded away Maurice. Marvin, you never knew if he was going to show up or not. But they had actually on that team one time, right before I was traded, I should say, right before I left, then they traded me. They brought in Moses Malone, Caldwell Jones, and myself, and Maurice Lucas. I mean, we had an unbelievable team. Ron Boone, who was a legendary ABA player.
Those names.
Freddie Lewis. Marvin Barnes was still on the team. And so I looked at this, and I didn't know what the next move was going to be. ML Carr was there, Boston Celtics, Detroit Pistons guy. And eventually. And so I asked my agent, I said, you think I can get out of here? He said, let me call Larry because they had your rights and I know he liked you. And I had known Larry from the summer, seeing him play down at Carolina's camp and stuff. He would always show up there. And so they traded for a pick for me or something. And I got to go to Denver and back up Bobby Jones. And then they started David Thompson at guard the next year, and I got to start with Bobby Jones and Dan Issel. So it was a good move for me to get out of St. Louis at that time. I'm sorry to leave Barry, but it was time for me. Yeah. And after that year, I don't think Barry played anymore.
Right.
You know, he never got a chance to play that year either, and that was about it for Barry. He's not doing too bad right now.
Yeah, I think
I was
going to say. What about, was there anything at UVA that helped you transition to the league, or some stuff that
being at a school that was in the ACC? Oh, you mean school wise maybe or something?
No, just in general, like coaching, style, play, drills, whatever. Was there stuff at UVA that really translated well to the league at that point?
Well, coaching always helps, but college is so much different than the pros, you know. So I wouldn't say the coaching was up. The coaching drills and everything helped me fundamentally grow some as a player at Virginia. But I'll be honest with you, it was mostly the summertime. That's when I busted my butt. Right. I mean, I worked camps. I worked out. I mean, I can remember playing any game I could possibly play. I never stopped, had an off season as far as playing basketball. That was what I did, and I loved.
Yeah.
And that's what made me better. Those playground games or pickup games in the gyms at camp, some stuff like that. Heck, even when I was in the pros, I'd play down the Dell outside. And when in the summer times, late at night, we'd go down there and play 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, a bunch of us guys, ex-players, down outside there. I don't think they have it anymore. The outdoor courts down by the
they're still there.
Yeah, they still have them?
They're still there.
Yeah,
they might. They're talking about putting something up there, though.
Yeah, they're talking about putting a parking structure. I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, that would be horrible because we used to have some unbelievable games there. They were going to ban me from playing there though because I kept bending the rims. They didn't have breakaway rims, and I was dunking so much and so hard on the rims. I started bending all the rims, and all the students started complaining that they couldn't play any basketball because the rims were all bent. So I either had to stop dunking or stop playing there.
But did you have a feeling when you got to the ABA compared to Virginia? Virginia's probably a little more structured. It's more, for lack of a better word, a team game. You're running plays. In the ABA, were you able to be like, oh, I can play like I'm on the playground now? Let's just go. It's more open.
It was that year in St. Louis. It was because we had a lot of hard heads that were kind of hard to coach, but excellent players and talent. Right. So, like I said, I fit right in. with two guys, Marvin Barnes and Maurice Lucas. I mean, I was a small forward on that team, and so I could run like I was on the playground. I could rebound. I averaged 8 rebounds that first year and almost 16 points, and just run on the break and rebound. And those guys had my back, and I had theirs. And now when I got to Denver, we played a more controlled passing game, although the athletes on that team were something else to believe, too. David Thompson and Bobby Jones and Dan Issel and Ralph Simpson, legendary high school player and all-pro in the ABA from Michigan State. And, there was some talent on that team, let me tell you. And believe it or not, that was the team I went into the finals with in the final year of the ABA, and we lost to Dr. J's Nets team. It was a much better team than we ever had at St. Louis. And we had won 60-some games that year and beat them probably 7 times out of 10. And they beat us. Julius just went crazy. And Larry Brown, he didn't extend his bench and kept a bunch of us guys that really contributed and forced a 6th game. And we went up by 25 in the first half in Nassau Coliseum. And Julius and John Williamson just went crazy on us in the 4th quarter. And we were all just sitting on the bench watching them. The lead, we had a 24-point lead in the 3rd quarter, just disappear. And they came back and beat us and won the championship in the final year in the ABA against a team that we should have absolutely won. That was one of the biggest upsets that beat Denver that year. Although Doctor went crazy. I mean, he was so ready for the NBA. I mean, that's when he basically forced a merger. The NBA their ratings were so down. They were applauding, kind of slow league, back you down, shoot this and that, no excitement. We had the 3-point shot. We had Artis Gilmore, Moses Malone, David Thompson, Bobby Jones, George Gervin, Julius Erving, Marvin Barnes, myself, Maurice Lucas. We had guys, James Silas from San Antonio, guys that people never heard of that went into the ABA that people wanted to see. We didn't have a contract though with the TV, so nobody got to see the ABA. So there had to be a merger because the ABA teams were folding left and right, and the NBA teams were rating down. They needed Julius and David Thompson and Gervin, Gilmore, and those guys, Moses. And we needed our players in the NBA. So they decided on 4 teams: Denver, Indiana, San Antonio, and New Jersey would all go into the NBA on a merger. So I got merged into the NBA with the Denver Nuggets. And the Spirits of St. Louis, go back to them, because I know you all probably have read the story about the owners of that team. Yeah. They were mad. They didn't want a merger. They wanted St. Louis to have a team in the NBA with all that talent. That's why they acquired all those guys I named earlier to you. Right. But if they didn't draw in St. Louis, and they didn't, it was a baseball Cardinals town, and it was a football and hockey town, and they just weren't ready for pro basketball. They had the St. Louis Hawks with Bob Pettit years ago and had to leave, so they just weren't ready. So they could have blocked the merger, but they worked out a deal where they would get a share of TV rights. Now remember, back then the NBA only had the NBA on CBS once a week, a tape delay usually. And even the playoffs were on tape delay a lot of times back then. And they made the NBA, in order to merge, agree to pay them a portion of whatever TV rights came in. 2 words, in perpetuity, was put in that contract, forever and ever, for as long as you're in existence. Well, here comes the ABA guys into the NBA, and boom, the TV rates go up. Well, then here comes Bird and Magic in 81 or whenever it was, 82. No, it must have been 80, 81.
80.
I played against both of them. Yeah, it was 80. Yeah. And so then the TV, here comes ESPN, here comes TNT. So here comes NBA TV. So meanwhile, all this money's now with these TV contracts are coming in, and Spirits owners are collecting hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year. And then it kept on. Here comes Jordan after the Magic years were over, and Bird years. And Jordan takes it to a whole nother level right. Market-wise. So they made so much money off those 2 words, in perpetuity. The NBA tried to buy them out many times, and they wouldn't sell. Finally, Ozzie Silma, the older of the brothers, the Silma brothers that were owners of St. Louis, finally sold about, I guess, maybe 4 years ago, for like $600 million. And they already had made over $1 billion, $1 billion in TV money. And one of the greatest
great
contracts
story.
ever. One of the best. If you follow Google that or whatever, that deal, it's like most
Best deal.
businessman, so to speak, consider that the greatest sports deal ever made. That them getting that contract TV rights from the NBA.
Yeah, what's it cost them taking a shot on a lotto ticket? You know, you went to the thing, you bought a lotto ticket, write it in there,
Yeah,
get them out of my league, and you're done.
Yeah. That was it.
That's crazy. So
Crazy how
then,
things work.
so you mentioned it briefly. You played, with Larry Bird and Magic and Kareem,
Yeah,
all of
against
those, against them.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you remember in any of them where you're like, oh, this guy's different? Well, there, obviously Dr. J, everybody knows.
Both of them. There was different. I knew they were different. They were definitely different, both of them. I thought Magic Johnson was the best player I ever played against. I thought David Thompson was the greatest college player I ever played against, and I love him. Certainly one of the best teammates I've ever had. But I thought Magic was the best player I'd ever played against. Now, a couple of times I got switched off on Kareem, and he threw his sky hook and had his armpit in my face and scratching my face with his hair under his arm. But he wasn't my position, so I didn't consider him playing against him, so to speak, even though I did. But a few times I had to guard Magic, and even though he was playing point, a lot of times he played forward also. And he would just whiz a pass by your ear before you even could get your hand up to defend it. And the whole time it looked like he was slow dribbling you. And you didn't realize how quick someone was having, kind of like, Ty was doing for UVA. And he'd slow you into this motion, and boom, there zips a pass right by your ear or bust by you. And he was 6'9" and just handled. I mean, could get the rebound and just take it through court around his back, look one way, throw it another. I mean, rebound.
Do it all.
I mean, he was just totally out of control. And then Bird, Bird was taller than people realized. Bird was almost 6'10" and a half. They listed him as 6'9", but Bird was every bit of 6'10", if not 6'10" and a half.
Right.
Wasn't really quick, couldn't jump really high, but was so smart, knew what was going to happen 2 plays before it happened, was quicker than he looked, and obviously could shoot the eyes out from anywhere. So, there's one game I'm guarding him, and he's looking at me like he's way out on the 3-point line, a step behind or so. He's looking at me and he's going, "You want 2?" And he'd look at me, he said, "Or you want 3?" And it's like, step over the line and judge. And he'd be talking shit to me, trash to me, excuse me, like that. "You want 2 or you want 3?" I didn't say anything to him, nothing. So I kind of backed off a little bit. He said, "Oh, you want 3?" Boom, right in your face. I wasn't the guy, though. He ran by the bench and told the opposing coach, it wasn't me. He said, "You really think this white guy can guard me?" Bird was one of the best, I'll tell you, as far as talking to coaches and players on the other team. He would punish you, man. They talked about how bad Jordan was. Bird was every bit as bad.
And of course, we're going to take it back to the Virginia. Compare them to the great Ralph Sampson. What did you'd probably gone back and played with him at that point? What did you think about him as a prospect at that time?
I knew Ralph. I knew Ralph would be dominant. The only problem was they wanted to stick Ralph on the block. If Ralph was in the NBA today with those skills like Kevin Durant has and all those guys that bring the ball up and shoot from outside, Ralph could do all that. He could do all that. And he had the ball. See, they put him on the block with Elijah Wan in Houston and stuff and had the Twin Towers. They wanted to do that. And Ralph would get muscled a lot. And as a result, he had a lot of heavy guys banging, falling on his knees all the time and got into knee problems quick, after not too many years in his career. But Ralph and I used to have some battles, I'm telling you, in the summertime at Charlottesville. And Ralph will tell you, too. He remembers because, I was one of the few guys that would dunk on Ralph. And then we used to joke around all the time. I'd look at him and say, "You couldn't get that P-head, could you?" I call him P-head. And no, I go, "You can't call Ralph Sampson P-head. What do you mean?" I said, "He's got this little tiny head."
What would Ralph have looked like in the ABA?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, he would have been great. Ralph would have been great.
Right? Doing whatever.
I could see that red, white, blue ball just flicking. I could see a red, white, and blue ball just flicking off his hand. That was They don't adopt that ball. That ball is the greatest ball to shoot with. You see the rotation perfect every time. You know, as a rebounder, exactly where that ball's going by the flight of it.
That's right.
I think that's a change that NBA should make. They finally, once they convinced Red Auerbach to adopt the 3-point line, they finally put that in the NBA, and they'll never change the ball. They don't want to give us credit for anything. We just got the NBA guys now to finally a few years ago to pay for our life insurance forever. They got us all bent. I mean, there's so much money in the NBA.
Oh.
It's multi-billions of dollars globally.
Oh, man.
And I mean, these guys, all they have to do is contribute like a 0.1% of their salaries. They could take care of all the retired players' health.
Gus, I've said that ever since the last negotiation with the max contracts. I've said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Figure out a number, and guys like you got, whatever. Just take care of people, like in whatever shape, form, or fashion that goes to. It's like a tax. You never see the money. It's 0.1% of everybody's contract. It goes to the guys that paved the way. I think it makes so much sense, man. I'd love to see somebody do it.
Thank you for that. And they did get us full health benefits for life for free.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
for free. That's
How
awesome.
long ago was that?
That's great.
That was like Pam, how long? 3 years? Yeah, about 3 years ago.
That's
and
great.
LeBron had a lot to do with that. He really fought for the older players. He was one of the guys. Now, there were some guys that would tell us that they would come out of those meetings about getting the NBA guys some extra pension money or funding, especially the older guys, the older 65 guys. They would tell us what happened, what they say in there. And they would say they had their time. They should have got it when they could have. Well, we weren't making, $30 million a year and $40 million a year and $150 million contracts and $200 million shoe contracts.
Right.
I got 10,000 for wearing Converse. I thought I was like king of the universe, man.
Right. That's
Did
crazy.
you have financial advisors talking to you at that time when you signed the contracts and when you got
Yes,
paid?
Mark, I had an agent in New York City, Norman Blass, and I had a financial advisor from Boston, Massachusetts, who also Barry Parkhill had. So yes.
And you talked about this in other articles and other things about, hitting rock bottom financially. You mentioned it briefly earlier in terms of, being homeless at one point. You said living under whatever. So you talked about after the NBA is pretty much said and done. Was that decision made based on physically you weren't playing, or was it more of a mentally you were done with basketball? Or
It was mentally I was done. I knew I was getting paid for more years, and I signed a free agent contract with the Utah Jazz. It wasn't a guaranteed contract, though, and I went to training camp, and I really didn't work out very much before the training camp. I went to Utah in that altitude, and I was so out of shape compared to, I thought I was in decent shape when I went there because I rode my bike everywhere in Charlottesville, all through the mountains and the hills and everywhere, and I played and stuff, but I didn't prepare myself like I should have physically. Plus, I had partied a lot that summer in Charlottesville, a real lot, and I lost my priority and passion for the game. And Utah, I was one of the last ones cut, and they cut me. And I was offered a chance to go to Italy and play for $100,000, but I turned it down because I had a home. We just built out an Ivy, and there outside of Charlottesville, and I had a child now, and I was comfortable where I was at. So I just said that's it for me.
and then you talked about after. I read you started delivering pizzas and you got into you went back home, you've been through the gamut, right? Living in your car or whatever. So what was basketball like to you at that point?
I was I was embarrassed. A lot of times I wouldn't go anywhere where I knew somebody might recognize me. I was still a fan. I watched as much as I could. I still played in some leagues. People would ask me to play. Where I didn't know people a lot of times, and I would play just because they give me some money and stuff like that. If I play on their team, at the YMCA or at the local health club or something. And that's when my life was totally different then. You know, basketball wasn't a priority to me. I had lost that. And like, remember I talked about ego edging God out. And, you know, when you become when you start using cocaine with an ego, you can get out of control real fast. You can forget about your priorities. You can forget about who's your best friend. You can forget about your responsibilities. And the whole time, my thing was, you know, so people say you're in denial about your addiction or whatever. At that point, I knew that what I was doing was screwing up myself and my family, but I was so deep into it. Every time I would start thinking about the pain I must be causing everybody, I would just annihilate myself with booze or cocaine or alcohol, and to forget about it and just repeat the same pattern over and over, and got into that black hole and dark spinning down cycle. And, you know, like I said, it ends up usually in jail, institutions, or death. And luckily, you know, in 1983, I called John Lucas up because I had tried to end my life up in Ohio. And I drove around in this old beat up car. I was basically bouncing from friend to friend, living up there. And I was going to take my own life. And I drove around for like a day and a half, and I had some Coke, and I was snorting that, and I had some vodka, and I was drinking that. And I pulled into this girl. This girl let me stay in her one room that she wasn't renting out at the time and didn't charge me any money. And so I had a room at this house, and she had a garage, and she had a 2-car garage, but it was separate. So one was empty. And I had this beat up old car that I was driving. I bought for like $50. And I pulled the car in there, and I said a prayer, and I wanted the fumes to take me out. I was so sad. I was so upset about not seeing my kids and what was happening to me, and what people I've hurt, that the pain, the chronic emotional distress I was going through at the time was so intense that I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I wanted to end my life. And I said a prayer and said, God, please, I'm sorry, please take care of my kids, and laid the seat back and hoped the funeral I wouldn't wake up, and, you know, that would be it. And I woke up, and I was real groggy, and I was thinking, where the heck am I at? Is this heaven? Is this something different? And what happened here? And what happened was I had driven around for a day and a half and never put any gas in the car. My car ran out of gas, and right in the middle of my passing out. And so it was a failed suicide attempt. And I went in that house, and on the kitchen table was a Sunday newspaper. In the parade section of that newspaper was an article on John Lucas, who was the first player kicked out of the NBA, All-American in Maryland. I knew John. I played against him in the pros and played with him in summer leagues and stuff. And he had a treatment center for athletes and people in Houston, Texas. And John was sober like about 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and had a rehab center. And I called down there, and he was in the playoffs. He was coaching the Spurs at the time, and they lost that game. And Barkley knocked him out with a jumper over David Robinson and knocked the Spurs out. And I had called down there just looking for help, just left my name as a message, seeing if I could get down there. And excuse me one second. John called me back that night, and he asked me what was going on. I told him everything I'd been doing, and I got real honest for the first time in my life with somebody, or first time in a long time with somebody, about what was going on in my life and what pain I was feeling and what I was doing to numb that pain. And he said, well, can you come down to Houston and spend some time with me? And I said, John, I don't have any money. I don't have insurance. And he said, MFer, I didn't ask you that. He said, I asked you, are you willing to come down to Houston and spend some time with me? And I said, yes, I am. He said, we'll get you down here. Got down to Houston, Texas on May 26, 1993. That was the first day of the rest of my life. Went into that treatment center, stayed 110 days, got spiritually fit again, started working out like crazy. Went into that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, went to meetings, still go to meetings. And not nearly as many as I went to, but still it's a big part of what gets somebody sober, and started a whole new life. I actually went and played pro basketball, believe it or not, after I had 110 days sober. And I was in John's facility still because it was this beautiful mansion that you lived in. God, when I got there to that treatment center, it was so cool. I had a king-size bed. I hadn't slept in a bed in like a couple of years, you know. It was a couch or a floor. And had a king-size bed, and there was food in the fridge and all this stuff. And God, they just built you up, man. They just built you up spiritually and emotionally and physically. What happened was I went to the gym every day, and we were playing ball and working out and lifting weights, and I got all my strength back, and I was in maybe the best shape. I was 40 years old, but I was maybe in the best shape I'd been in, and you know, throughout my pro career, because I hadn't done any drinking or anything for 110 days, and I'd worked out almost every day. Part of their program was taking you to the gym for 2 hours a day. And I was playing down there at Fondy Recreation Center in Houston, one of the most famous rec centers in the country, because that's where Akeem Olajuwon learned how to play from Moses Malone when Moses was with the Rockets. And there were some intense games in that gym. And so all the pros played there. So John would put me over on the side of the gym where the better players and the pros were playing. Well, there happened to be a scout there I didn't even know Mexico had a professional team, a league down there. And I knew there was teams over in Europe you could play as American and stuff. But there was a coach there from a team in Mexico, and I was out there playing, dunking again and shooting jumpers. He asked John, he said, "Who's that guy out there, the white guy, that's playing?" And John said, "Oh, that's Gus Gerrard. He's been out of the league, you know, for about 13 years now. 12 years, and he said he's 40 years old. He goes, hell, he's better than anybody I got on my team right now. He said, you think he'd want to come to Mexico and play? We only got a couple months left in the season, but he could help us get in the playoffs. And John said, I don't know. I'll ask him. John said, Gus, you want to go play some ball? I said, where? He said, Mexico. I said, no. And then he said, why not? And I said, I don't think it's good for me. I think it's too early for me to leave here. He said, no, it's not. He said, you just practice the tools we gave you and you'll be all right. He said, you got any money? And I said, no. He said, they want to pay you $10,000 cash for 2 months. And I said, he said, you owe child support? I said, absolutely. He said, you need to go to Mexico. So I did. I called the guy, the owner of the team. They got me a flight from Houston down to San Luis Potosí in Mexico. I didn't speak any Spanish then. I didn't know about pesos and exchange or not. Not only the house manager where I was staying at John's, he gave me like $10 and to take to Mexico with me because he said the owners will give you money when you get there.
Right.
And so we landed in this airport at San Luis Potosí, and I get off the plane, and I'm supposed to meet an assistant coach there who was driving to pick me up and take me to the home city, San Luis Potosí. So we flew into Leon, that's what it was, and I had to take a car ride with the coach to San Luis. And I'm waiting around, and no coach is showing up, and I'm getting really nervous, you know, and I'm edgy because I'm thinking there's people drinking in here at the bar, and I hadn't been around anybody to drink for 110 days. And, you know, I started getting a little nervous or whatever, and all of a sudden I hear my name announced over a loudspeaker to come to the phone. I went to the phone, and it's the team. The assistant coach is supposed to pick me up, and he's told me he can't make it because their car broke down. And I said, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, we need you to take a bus to this city. And the guy that was working at the gate that took the call from me and paged me must have heard us talking about basketball or something. And he spoke English. Thank goodness. He heard me talking, and he could see I was frustrated. And he said, excuse yourself for a minute from your call. He said, is there something I can help? I said, do you want me to take a bus? I'm going to play pro basketball down here. And he said, hold on, let me talk to the guy. He said, okay. He said, all right, I got him. So he said, the owner said, he's got you. We'll see you when you get here, about 3 hours. So I go and I get a bus ticket. This guy gets off work. He buys me a bus ticket at the bus station because I didn't really have enough money for it. If I did, he didn't even bother. It was probably like $5. And he just paid for it. But he loved basketball. And I was telling him about who I was and stuff and where I was going. He said, oh, yeah, I know about that team down there. And he said, now, look, don't get off this bus until you get to San Luis Potosí, okay, because it's going to make some stops. Well, here we go, through the mountains of Mexico, no guardrails. I'm looking over the edge. The bus driver's flying around these things. I see a flask. It must have been tequila down there or something up under his dashboard, up under the thing.
Oh, God.
Every once in a while, he'd take a drink of it. Then we'd stop about every 5 miles and let the chickens and goats and pigs walk across the street. And like my nerves were so frazzled, I was thinking, I need a drink right now. But I never did. I didn't have anything, thank God. But I just started praying and reading my book, my big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got it. I got to the city. We were going to finally after 7 hours, not 3.5, 7 hours. And I get there and that guy picks me up at the bus station, the assistant coach. And now he had a car to work finally. And he said, let's go. We got to hurry up. We got a game tonight. I said, tonight? What do you mean we got a game tonight? I said, you know what I just been through? And he said, come on. We got to get to the hotel. We got your uniform and everything there. I go to the hotel and I changed in my uniform and I go to the game. And I got there in time to get kind of the pregame talk and everything with the coach. And he starts me right away. And I go out and play and playing against a guy named Major Jones, one of the 5 Jones brothers that played in the NBA, like Caldwell and Major and a whole bunch of other ones. And Major was like 6'9", 6'10", but we knew each other from Houston. And I was playing pretty well. I was rebounding. I guess I was just nervous energy, so I had a lot, I wasn't tired or anything. I just kicked in, and I was rebounding well, and I was scoring some points. And all of a sudden, I get a rebound, and I turn, and the guy sticks his elbow through my hand somehow or hits me from the side and cuts me above the eye like where a boxer would get cut on his eyebrow and splits my head wide open. And so almost blood starts gushing out of my head. I know this is a long story, but it's almost done. And,
Keep it going, loving it.
Okay, so this blood is rushing out of my head and they put this towel on me. So obviously I can't play no more. And I go over to the bench and they take me in the locker room. And the owner of our team, thank God, was a professor at the university there in San Luis Potosí. And he tells me, though, I laid on the bench in the locker room. There was no training table or nothing. And I was laying on this skinny bench, and he looks and said, yeah, you're going to need to go. He actually was the doctor from the university there. And he said, we're going to have, stitch you up at the clinic. And I said, at the clinic? And all I had heard about from people before I went down to Mexico was, look, don't go to any clinics down there because we might wake up in a bathtub with ice with one of your kidneys missing on the black market, for sale on the black market. Be careful about where you go down there. So I'm freaking out. I'm not going to any clinics. He said, I'm going to be the one stitching you up. I said, oh, okay. I'll go with you. So I get there to this. I don't know if you've ever been to a clinic in Mexico. I kind of doubt it, way down in Mexico. But it's a little different in the American clinics, especially back at that time in 1980 or 1993. And I get there and it's not very big and it's more like a house than a medical clinic. And I go into this room and the table I have to lay on to get stitched up, it's only about maybe 5'10", 5'10" because there weren't many big guys in this town I was playing ball in. Most of the Mexican people were short.
Yeah, that sounds like a center, a 5'10" center in Mexico.
Yeah, and so I lay down on this table and I'm closing my eyes the whole time. I didn't want to look and see what happened. And I opened them and they had brought in all these like studio lights or something to shine down on me so the guy had enough light to stitch me up, the doctor. And I opened my eyes and there's like about 10 people standing around me in white coats and in jackets, medical people, and they're just staring at me with this god-awful look on their face. And I thought, what's wrong, Doc? Is like the brain coming out of my head or something? And he goes, no. He starts laughing. I said, what's going on? He goes, they've just never seen anybody with feet as big as yours or legs as big as yours in here before. And they're in amazement. I said, oh, Jesus, is that what it is? So he stitched me up and I went back. I didn't play for like 2 weeks. And then I played and finished off that, came back to Houston and lived there for about 21 years, met my wife there. And we've been married, we'll be married 20 years this summer. in fact, in 2 days from now, June 24th, and I met her in Houston, and she put her life on hold to come back here with me 5 years ago to my hometown, 5 or 6 years ago to take care of my mom when she started getting dementia, and left her family in Houston. So we'll eventually end up back there. Right now, I'm working here for the government, Fayette County government, and I work at the courthouse. Nice little job. I work with the county commissioners, and I did have a restaurant and pub here, but it was too much drama for me in my life at this stage to be around alcohol like that and everything. And it wasn't like I was tempted to drink or not, but it was just too many hours there in dealing with the people. Sometimes I had to deal with. It wasn't good for me mentally or physically. So I got out of that. Now I have a nice little gig down here downtown, and so that's how I ended up back here, and that's what my trip to Mexico. After Mexico, I went back to Charlottesville. To Houston, and John Lucas says to me, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'd really like to be a drug and alcohol counselor and do like what Byron Griggs, my counselor in Johnston." So I said, "I want to help people like y'all do. I want to do that and have my own place and help me." And he said, "Well, go ahead." And I said, "Well, what do I do?" He said, "Go to school and get your license. Go back to school and get your counseling license." So I went to a counseling school in Houston, Texas, at one of the hospitals there, and got my alcohol and drug certification and became a drug and alcohol counselor after practicum of 350 hours and 4,000 hours of other training and everything, and I passed my license test and became a certified licensed counselor. And about 3.5 years later, after I went back to school, and ended up starting to work in treatment centers for John. And then I went to a bigger facility in town, and John moved on because he was coaching in the NBA and he had a lot of other things going on. So he sold out to a hospital or something. And I went with another company in Houston and got with them, and I became a counselor, started working with people, and I loved it because I was saving people's lives. I still get calls to this day or text from people because I've had my same cell number from back when I was doing that. Saying that they're still sober and they're still clean, and I had such an influence on their life. To me, that's been such the rewarding part of all my life, through all the basketball, through everything, helping people and get a call from them or seeing on Facebook them saying, "You got some celebrating 26 years today," or something like that, or 22 years or whatever. That still brings chills to me, and makes me feel grateful for that point in my life. And I still get calls from people that need help all the time with treatment, and I try to send them in the right direction, take care of myself and take care of them. That helps me taking care of other people. So it's, that part of my life is pretty well straightened out.
Why do you think you opened up to John Lucas on a fluke?
Because I knew him from the dark side. Because John was on the dark side with me.
Okay.
I read his story.
So you weren't embarrassed?
The police picked him up in Houston, Texas, after a 3-day binge of alcohol and cocaine. He was still dressed in his suit that he wore to the game that night, in socks, but no shoes, at like 5 a.m. wandering the streets in Houston. Now, John still had money and everything when he got kicked out, but he got kicked out of the league because it was like his third drug offense or something. He got kicked out, and that's when he got sober himself and opened up his hospital. And I told his story just like I told you a lot of mine. I read about that, and I said, "Holy crap, that's me!" And that's when I decided to put in a call to him. And I called my sister, Roxanne, who is going to want to know about this podcast. She's my older sister, 2 years older than me, and she's my biggest fan, next to my dad was. And she follows me on everything. She posts all these things on ABA sites in Facebook and all this stuff. And she just can't wait for this podcast to come out. And
so cool.
I called her and I asked her. She's about the only bridge I hadn't burned in my family. And I asked her about Houston, and she knew about John's treatment facility. I believe she had read it too, and she had sent me a book on Lawrence Taylor about his addiction and stuff too that I did read. And she was willing to get me a ticket down to Houston, and a one-way ticket, because she didn't want me coming back. And
okay. Right.
So I ended up coming down.
I was going to ask, when was your last trip to Charlottesville?
when was that, Pam? About 3 years ago?
Yeah.
About 3 years ago, we went to a game down there when they had everybody come back. Got to meet Coach Bennett and everything. Then I see them when they came up to play West Virginia a couple of years ago, and then down at Pitt, I go down to the games down there. But I'd like to get back to Charlottesville more often. It's just, I don't know why I don't. I just seem to, something happens all the time where I get something come up.
Everybody's busy. Do they give you tickets at least, or you got to find your own tickets? I'm curious.
As long as my man VP is down there, I got tickets, man. As long as Parkville's there, I got great tickets. Or Wally,
right.
you know, any of those guys. Yeah, oh yeah, no problem with tickets. So,
are we okay going into the little photo series, Mark? You got any?
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, do you need a battery check or anything, Gus? Or are we good to go?
I still got 41%.
Okay,
it's just
great.
my allergies are bad today. I'm sorry. It's been really high pollen here.
I have a question. You can edit it out if you don't like it, TW.
No worries.
And I know we're going long. So you grew up the way I did, playing with black kids and white kids, mostly black kids, right? When you went to college, you know, the ACC back then was very white. Am I right?
Right.
I don't know, the integration came. You talked about NC State, et cetera. How was that? Did you wish there were more black dudes? Did you not think about it? Was it just like that was your life when you're playing with your boys? I'm always curious about that.
I didn't think about it that much, Doug. I really didn't. We only had one black player on the team at Virginia, Al Drummond. He was the first one that was recruited there. I think Barry talked about him at my on his interview with you guys. But no, I didn't. But by the time I got there, Maryland had 4 or 5, at least 6 guys on their team that were African American, and North Carolina had Phil Ford and Walter Davis, McAdoo. You know, the league was getting integrated by the time I got there. You know, it wasn't like Barry's first year there or second year. By the time we got there, it really started turning with the African American athletes. Gotcha. So it didn't bother me. I didn't matter who I played against as long as I could play.
Right. Yeah, same for me. I thought that was interesting because it's such a different time.
I'm trying to look at these pictures you got up on screen. Can I make them bigger? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, first one is
Jim Hobgood.
Jim Gobhood, Barry Park Hill.
These, you know, what's funny about taking these shots? You have to do like 50 different dribbles and poses to get for them to put one shot out of you like this when we took these photos. But Barry, you know, to me, he was next to David Thompson. Barry was one of the greatest college players I've ever seen, especially that junior year of his. My God, nobody controlled the game like him. I remember Jerry West saying about Barry, if Barry was a senior, he'd be our number 1 pick with the Lakers back at that time, right? Because the NBA wasn't taking undergraduates back then, and he was just an unbelievable basketball player, not highly recruited, Pennsylvania guy. So you know, we really hit it off. I knew a lot of guys at Penn State that he knew. He even knew guys from my hometown. Besides the guy on the right, Jim Hobgood, who I got to play high school with and was one of my idols growing up. Somebody used to call my mom's house and go, "Hey, is Danny there?" And she'd go, "Yeah," and it'd be my friend. He'd say, he lived right up by the playground, and say, "Hobgood's up here shooting, man." I'd get on my bike and I'd ride up there, and I'd just sit there and watch him shoot like from 25 to 30 feet and 30 feet. And sometimes I'd rebound the ball for him and throw it to him. And then I got to play, you know, I got to watch him win the state championship, and he was one of my heroes. And I got to play with him my sophomore year when he was a senior.
Cool.
So that was pretty cool.
That's so cool, because I as a kid growing up, I just knew him as the radio guy, and I'd hear stories about him, and I was always curious.
That guy could shoot the ball, man. I'll tell you. The people say Chris Mullen, left-handed Chris Mullen, he didn't have as much range as that boy on the right there, Jimmy Hobgood.
That's awesome.
Sweet shooting, man. I'll tell you what, and a really good rebounder for his size too. Hobgood was like 6'6" maybe, and 6'5", 6'6", but we turned out good players from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Here's the next one.
Oh boy. Okay.
What do you remember?
I think that's maybe against West Virginia. I'm trying to tell by the afros of maybe Warren Baker or somebody.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Just remember flying through, probably trying to kind of scoop shot or finger roll or something.
Well, what was the significance? What was the significance? How did you come up with picking number 22? Was there a story behind that?
No, because I was 34 in high school. I think I went to 22 for some reason. When I got to Virginia, it just hit me that I want to be 22. I knew. I think in 70 and 71, the Knicks won the championships maybe back to back. The last time they ever won, the New York Knicks with Dave DeBusschere, number 22, and maybe that was sticking in my mind or something. And
I was going to say,
yeah.
I got a question. How about the wristbands? Style or function back then? Because I used to wear them growing up because of you guys.
I function. I thought they would keep the sweat off my hand from rolling down my arms on my hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking up at the crowd at this point. Pretty packed. Pretty packed. I mean, this is obviously looks like U-Haul.
Yeah, it's U-Haul.
But what were your memories of the fan support when you got there to the end? You said Barry Park Hills packed, and then
it was great. It was great fan support. The football team was still struggling really bad at that time. The lacrosse team was off the charts good. They were winning national championships, so there was a big lacrosse fan base at Virginia. But basketball was the sport, and they just loved us. I'll tell you, we were heroes in their eyes. I could tell the parents would bring their kids to the summer camps, and they would just want to sit and talk and see
so
the
cool.
gleam in their eyes and stuff. I can remember working those camps with Barry, Wally, Mark Ivaroni, and we'd all coach against each other. Coach Holland would all give us a group of kids, and we'd all coach against each other and stuff. And so those were great memories for me.
It seems from my perspective, it seems like Virginia basketball started in earnest with you guys. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
look at what it's become. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because you figure Ralph came after us, or actually there were guys before Ralph. After Wally left, in between Wally and Ralph. But then once Ralph got there, and Lamp, Raker, and all those guys came in, and Brian Stitt. I mean, good Lord, now I couldn't even name how many guys. Before you could count the number of players that played in the pros in the NBA or ABA from Virginia on one hand.
Right.
Maybe you didn't need all your fingers. And now I can't even think. Sometimes I'll forget about Joe Harris because I hear because DeAndre, I'm such a big fan of DeAndre, but I was a big fan of Joe Harris.
That's awesome.
You forget about all the guys and Brian Stitt and I love, Malcolm Brogdon. My God, he's just a
at the start of last season, there were 9 guys from UVA in the league. So
is that right? Wow,
impressive.
Yeah.
And here's this next one. You guarding
the great doctor,
Dr. J.
Yeah, well, he got that one off on me, but he got it off on a lot of people. But I got to tell you, I blocked some of those jump shots. Yeah. Not many, but I blocked a few. But I also got posterized a few times.
I mean, you talked about you had some regrets in terms of your career, in terms of you could have played longer, you could have done that. But what do you remember or cherish about your time against someone like Dr. J?
Oh, the getting paid to play a game for 2 hours a day and get paid for it. I mean, and people, some of the guys on the airplanes would be like griping because we'd have a layover in the airport or something, and be complaining and all this and that, whining about practice. And I'm thinking, my God, you're making 75, 100,000, 150,000, whatever back in those days, 200,000, and you're going to complain about working 2 hours a day and getting to fly over the country, playing the best cities and playing against the best players every night. That was the thing. Even if you weren't playing, you got to watch a great game usually, or a great performance. Sometimes the games weren't great or that competitive as they should have been, but the performance, there would be an individual performance that would just blow you away how good these guys were. I learned real early from a old wise pro in St. Louis, Jumping Joe Pogo Caldwell. He pulled me aside my rookie year because we were real brash, cocky rookies, Barnes, Lucas, and myself. And he pulled me aside and he told me 2 things. He said, one, you need to quit jumping all the time like that in practice and everything, because see these knees I got? I used to jump like you, and now I can't hardly go at all. And one day you're going to be like that. And he's right. It took me till about 10 years ago for my knees to really start feeling it. Boy, my God, are my knees bad now. And the other thing he told me was, I got to tell you right now, as good as y'all think you are, you haven't been around this league, everybody in this league's got a scrapbook as big as yours.
Right.
Think about that. Everybody was probably their best player in high school, probably their best player in college, and so if they were on that team, chances are they could play. Even there were players, the guys would say, oh, he's on the team because he's a token guy at the end of the bench or something. That guy could play, believe me, Barry Parkhill sitting on the bench all year. He wasn't a token player at Virginia Squire or St. Louis. Barry could absolutely play with anybody in that league. Yeah. And so everybody got a scrapple. That's what I tell young kids today. I still tell them today, everybody's got a scrapple.
What about the ABA All-Star game you participated in? What was that like?
Okay, this was the last year of the ABA. We had a brand new arena in Denver, McNichols Arena, seated 17,000. We sold out every night. Well, they had the All-Star game there, and they had a slam dunk contest, but I wasn't in it because David Thompson was on our team, and he was in it because Bobby Jones or myself or David could have been in that. Well, everybody wanted to see David and the Doctor in the finals, and that's what happened of the All-Star game. Packed arena, people standing in the aisles. I mean, probably fire codes violations that night. There were so many people in that gym, and David missed a 360 crazy angle Vince Carter kind of dunk and missed it. And Dr. J made a spectacular dunk from the free throw line. And that was the first slam dunk game there was.
That's so cool.
And then there was a concert after the game. It was Glenn Campbell and somebody I can't remember. And there was a concert after the game. And who else was with Glenn Campbell? Oh, the Temptations. The Temptations were there also. No, I got to take it in my mind. That's what you got to understand. That was a while ago for me. Glenn Campbell, and there was another country music star there. I can't really remember who it was. So they were at that, and we all stayed for the concert. But I got to tell you a story about the Temptations because I know we're going along here. It's quick. When I was on another team, when I was on the Kansas City Kings, we flew into Denver, and we were staying at the hotel, and in a coffee shop, the Temptations were there, and they were having a concert after the game with us and the Kansas City Kings and the Denver Nuggets that night. And so we got to talk to the guys. They knew Phil Ford from our team. They recognized Phil. Hey, Phil, we were so-and-so Temptations. And, hey, man, we go to a show. Where y'all playing? We're playing after your game tonight. And we said, oh, man, yeah, y'all got backstage fat. Come on back. So, of course, back then, and I don't know if they still do, but back then in the NBA locker rooms and the ABA locker rooms, there was usually a couple cases of beer in the locker rooms that even before you would talk to reporters, they'd be in the showers out of sight mostly. So that's why guys would take such long showers because you'd be in there popping a few beers real quick. And you were so dehydrated from the game, it didn't take but a few slam downs, in the shower, and then a couple more on the bus or whatever to get you feeling kind of good. Well, anyway, after the game, we're feeling kind of good, and the Temptations are there, and they came out for an encore, a great concert, and they said, hey, we'd like our friends from the Kansas City Kings to come up here and join us on stage for this last number. Well, the only ones that went were like me and a couple other guys, and everybody else was either too shy or didn't want to be seen up there, or maybe drink too much or something. And but they were doing Cloud Nine, and we were up there like a bunch of fools they're in perfect rhythm doing all this stuff, and we were looking like idiots up there. After about 10 seconds, that was it for me. I faded behind the curtain real fast. That was just a great, great time in that ABA. I'll tell you, best 2 years fun of basketball. It was so much fun.
This next one, another one, believe it or not, this is the
Dr.
J.
Going under? Oh,
yeah. I mean, hand outside the baseline, and he's coming.
You know what people don't understand is he used to do stuff like that consistently when it wasn't on TV. His early days at Virginia, I mean, he might have not done that exact shot, but he done stuff that was every bit or more spectacular than that, or when he dunked on Michael Cooper in the playoffs that year, when he cupped the ball and took off from way out. We saw Dr. J do stuff like that every night. And the guys he practiced with him said they saw him do stuff that was just off the charts. They've never seen in their life. So it didn't surprise me when I saw him do that, but I was laughing, saying, yeah, well, now the NBA guys are getting a good dose of what came over from the other league.
He's notorious for having just giant hands. How did his? Do you remember seeing or comparing your hand to his at that point?
Absolutely. Oh yeah,
Huge.
we shook hands many times. I mean, his hand. I tell everybody that his hand would be like you, T-Dub, or me, or Doug, or Mark picking up an orange or grapefruit. That's how he picked up a basketball. So imagine yourself picking up a grapefruit or orange. That's what a basketball looked like in his hands. His hand,
Yeah.
I have pretty long hands, but his fingers, I kid you not, were like probably about 2 inches longer than mine, 2 or 3 inches longer than mine. He had the most enormous hands that I've ever seen. Nobody's even come close. Now, Jordan, I think, has real big hands, MJ, but I never saw him or Doc,
Yeah.
maybe their hands.
Right. Jordan is funny in that, and I don't know if you watched The Last Dance. He mentioned how the advantage he thought he had was that his thumb was so far detached from the rest of his hand that he had a different grip than ever. I don't know that. I thought that was super interesting. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I saw The Last Dance. It was nice. It was nice to have that come on during the pandemic and have something to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And then this is what happens when you Google your name. Do you ever do that? I was gonna say
Not
anything
very often.
here pop off as something.
Yeah, my afro was the Detroit Pistons because I was in Motown, in Detroit,
Yeah,
so I
this
had
one.
to have a fro to represent. Artist Gill, trying to take a charge on Artist Gilmore, number 53, 7'1", about 260, solid muscle, and I was about 205. Top picture is my wife and I when we opened up the pub and restaurant here in Uniontown. On the right is me getting ready to tomahawk a dunk I took off from my hands right inside the free throw line on Billy Paltz, the Whopper, 6'11", from St. John's, who played for the Nets. Bobby Jones looking on.
Yep.
I tapped that one off the back of my shoulders and rattled
That's
it.
awesome. That is awesome.
Those are the only ones I can see unless you have some other. Oh, there's so many.
The Spirits.
This
St.
one,
Louis.
this one was the cover of the Spirits of St. Louis. I got to on there. That was the cover for the second year of existence for St. Louis, and they put me on the cover. Why they didn't put Marvin Barnes or Freddie Lewis? Maybe they thought Marvin wouldn't show up for the photo shoot or something.
That's awesome.
So they took a picture of me out of one of the games from the year before, dunking the ball, and put me on the cover. And all these other ones. This one up here guarding Dr. J.
Yeah.
In the finals. That he didn't turn the corner on me that play. I can guarantee you that. I watched the film of that game, but he turned the corner on me and Bobby Jones and I many times in that series.
That's awesome.
So I squared up pretty good on that one.
And then here's this next one. This is the roster. This is the UVA 72-73 roster.
Okay, Barry,
Wally Walker, Hobgood, Al Drummond.
Bob McCaig, my good friend Bob McCaig.
Dan Bonner.
You see, none of those guys, the only center on the team, Dan Bonner was from Pittsburgh too. Lanny Stahersky, see, he was 6'7", he was 6'11", Lanny Stahersky. That's not right. Yeah, he was 6'11". He was a center, but he wasn't interested in basketball very much and didn't play very much. So look at the height, 6'8", Spencer Graham. He never really played after his first year. Spencer was one of them guys from Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Maryland. Kind of had other things on his mind besides basketball. He was more into school and art and college culture and stuff. Bob Sefcik from Hoboken, New Jersey. My man Chet, we called him. He comes to Charlottesville quite a bit. Brian Tolley was from up that way, New Jersey, New York area. But Andy Benetti from the city and Bob McCaig, those were my guys. Bob McCaig was from Erie, PA, and Andy Benetti from the city. But Wally and I, that was pretty good tandem of forwards. I can remember an article in the paper of Coach Gibson saying that there was a picture of Wally and I together and said, I have them insured. He said, I have them insured by Lloyd's of London. I wouldn't trade them for anybody in our league right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Wally was pretty darn good. That was pretty good. We had three good, and Hobgood and Drummond. Drummond wasn't bad. He couldn't score very much, but he was a good defender. And just didn't. We hadn't played together, none of us. You know, Hobgood and Barry were really the only ones to play because Drummond didn't play much a year before. So we took us a while to kind of get to know each other. Nice. I remember coming back to Pitt that year in my high school, bringing down about 3 school buses full of people, coaches and people from my high school. And we played Pitt, and Barry really took care of me and threw me the ball. I ended up with 30-some points, and we won that game at Pitt. And all the guys from my high school, they were all going to the bus with about a minute left when Coach took me out of the game. And they'd walk behind the Virginia bench. Back then, there was no security. You could walk down behind the players pretty much if you wanted to. And they were all giving me fives and stuff, high fives and everything. To me, yeah, Gus, good game. Good to see you, man. All my boys from hometown came down. But Barry really hooked me up that game with some great passes.
That's awesome. I was going to say, what was there a most memorable game for you in your career at UVA?
Probably the ACC tournament game against Tree Rollins with 39 and 19 rebounds when he was 7-1. There was one play I remember dribbling the ball through his legs on the wing. He was like, out guard me. I put it right through his legs and went around him and got the ball, went above the rim and laid it in. You couldn't dunk back then in my year. In fact, it cost us the Las Vegas Christmas tournament my junior year. We were in the tournament in Las Vegas in the championship game against UNLV. And late in the game, I stole the ball at half court. We were kind of picking up full court, and I stole the ball. And I went down, I took off, and I went above the rim, and my hand was way above the rim. And I turned it over and kind of laid it in, finger rolled it in, and the referee called me for dunking the ball and took the basket away, and we lost by 1 point. Coach Gibson threw a chair at the referee that night or something.
Wow.
He was so upset. But, yeah, we ended up losing the tournament because of that, because we couldn't dunk. But that would have been quite a league back then because besides myself and Barry, there was a guy named David Thompson in the league that I saw that guy catch an alley-oop pass. I'd come out of the game so I wouldn't get my third foul before halftime. It was right before the half, and Monty Towel threw him that alley-oop. They were, the ones that started that lob pass, they call it now, but it was the alley-oop back then. Monty Towel to David Thompson, and David was fake going to the wing and go back door. Monty threw that ball up, and David caught it in between his arms and hands were upstretched, and the pass was off, and David caught it in between his forearms and elbows and laid it over the rim with like his elbows and forearms instead of his hands. And I was sitting on the bench like, court level, and saw how high he was up. And I just went, oh my God. And then I got to play with him in Denver. How cool was that?
That's full circle.
Yeah.
And then here's the next one.
Oh, my coach, Dick Vitale.
This is Dick Vitale.
He became my coach in the Pistons.
Yeah.
Not for long, though. He cut me in training camp.
I was going to say, what is your relationship with him after he did that?
Oh, it was fine because, you know what? He really made me money because he cut me when I was already on a long-term guaranteed contract. And he cut me. So if I became a free agent. Now, I was going to get my money because it was personally guaranteed by my original owners, and any team to pick me up after that had to do the same thing. And so Detroit did the same thing. So I was guaranteed my $150,000. But I was free to sign another contract. So he said, I'm really sorry to lose that. And I couldn't take Dickie V very much as a coach. He was too much for me. And he had his guys there from University of Detroit. He brought in John Long and Terry Tyler, young guys. Those guys were going to make the team. They were both my position, so forwards. So anyway, I just told him, I said, Coach, you did me a favor. He said, why? I said, because if somebody picks me up, I get to sign another contract plus what I make from you guys. He said, oh, that doesn't work out. I said, yeah, it does. He didn't know. He was right from college. He didn't know all that. So 2 days later, Richard Washington from UCLA was playing with Kansas City Kings, tore his knee up, and Cotton Fitzsimmons calls me to coach. And I got to go to Kansas City Kings where we won the Midwest Division a couple of years and got to play with Phil Ford, Otis Birdsong, and Sam Lacey and all those guys. And got rid of Dickie V. But I've seen him since then. I've seen him since those days. And,
what do you think about what's he turned into? Is like a caricature of himself.
A multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
He's made so much money off of that PTP, baby, PTP. I mean, it's unbelievable. I wouldn't call it a scam, but he does.
Gus. All bullshit aside, does he know anything about basketball?
A little bit. the
I
only
mean,
reason,
he's so big with saying, "Young guys out there, now watch this guy set the screen and do the," which is
yeah.
cool. His
He,
enthusiasm is great.
let me tell
But
you.
come
Let me
on.
tell you. Okay, Bob Lanier, big Bob Lanier from St. Bonaventure, Hall of Fame.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys
Yep.
remember him or not.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Of course, size 23
So-
shoe, I think.
Bob, yes, yeah, and he had the locker right next to me. And the guy had like 5-inch toes. He had the ugliest toenails I've ever seen. His feet were so beat up. It was like, Bob, put your socks on, would you, man? Dauber, we used to call him Dauber.
Yo,
Would you please
Gus,
put your
Gus,
socks
Gus,
on?
I'm,
God.
I'm the
Anyway,
only basketball
this-
player in history to have nice feet. Every basketball player's feet are horrendous.
Yeah, and so it, I got cut like at the end of training camp that year with Dick Vitale, his first year there, and the first game we had in training camp, exhibition game, was, I forget what city it was in. It was maybe at Eastern Michigan or somewhere, or Michigan State. It was an exhibition game against maybe Denver or somebody, and Dickie V thought he could get Bob Lanier to play hard in exhibition season. Back there, many of the guys, they didn't work out like today's athletes do year round,
Right,
24/7. Back then, guys would play. A lot of guys would play their way into shape during training camp. And Bob Lanier was one of those veterans who pretty much had earned that. And so Bob kind of he didn't even want to play in this game. It was an early exhibition game, and he had knee issues too. And look, Dickie V's going, Bob, you got to run up and down the court and you got to play. And it was halftime, and he got on Bob about not jogging up or running up and down the court, for just jogging up and down the court. And Bob picks up this plastic garbage can in there, one of the big ones, not a little desk one, like a big one you put trash in. And he took it up and he fired it up against blackboard, the green chalkboard that was on wheels, where Dickie V was yelling at him from, smashed through the chalkboard, knocked it over, and said, I don't play in exhibition games anymore. And Dickie V just said, what he didn't know. He started getting rattled. We're all looking around going, holy shit, what do we do now? What are we supposed to do in this situation? I'm thinking, well, I ain't saying nothing to Bob, that's for sure. He's 6'11", 350.
That's a great story, dude.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh my God.
So I almost got to see him get crushed by a garbage can, which didn't happen, but almost.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And then here's the next one, game of the decade. We talked about Ralph a little bit earlier, but I everyone has a story about this game. Do you remember this one?
Yeah, I just remember being hyped to watch it on TV. Oh my God. I didn't go specifically because I wanted. What year was that?
84, 80.
80,
Yeah.
80,
I didn't go to that game because
the snowstorm. It was a big snowstorm today.
I wanted to watch it on TV and drink beer
Yeah.
and stuff, and enjoy with some friends and stuff, and watch Ralph and Ewing go at it. Yeah, but I remember preparing for that game. Sports Illustrated came out with a picture of Ralph on the cover, and he had a curling bar that you do curls with. It was like a 50-pounder or something, because Ralph was always so thin, and he had curled, and it showed his arm, and it looked like Hulk Hogan's arm or something. I'm going, that's not Ralph's arm that big. And, it made it look like he had these gigantic guns on him. I mean,
I remember that.
He was big, but his arm wasn't that big, and this wasn't that picture. But he certainly bulked himself up. But what a great game that was, and great matchup they had.
The history.
Ralph coming to Virginia, what a catch that was. Coach Holland actually had him, hide out sometimes because Red Auerbach was trying to get him to talk to him to come to Boston. And I remember Coach Holland talking, we got to hide Ralph out somewhere and do this and that. I said, bring him out to my pool, Coach. I don't know if I want to do that.
I was going to say, Holland, when you were, obviously you got your contract and you were set, but did you look at his style of play and wonder like how you would have fit into his style?
Yeah, I don't think I would have fit in very well. Although great players find a way to fit in, but it wasn't. I needed freedom. I needed freedom. I needed to go. I needed to play, and I needed to run and have the ball and rebound, and I couldn't. I had probably too much funk in my game for the style.
Yeah, for his style. That's what I was alluding to. I always wondered that. Like, I wonder if you even thought about. Obviously,
in a good playground kind of way.
Yeah, And then here's this next one: Len Bias versus Michael Jordan. Obviously,
wow.
I wanted to ask you, obviously, the impact of hearing about Len Bias, and you were going through what you're going through.
I was going through what I was going through at the time that it happened to Len.
Yeah.
It's one of those things to me, like you remember if you're old enough when President Kennedy got assassinated, you remember where you were in school.
Yep.
When 9/11 happened, you remember where you were.
Yep.
When they said what came on the news that day, I was back here at home, Pennsylvania, after I got divorced and was really deep in my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember waking up at my mother's house and turning on the TV, and I saw that, and I just started crying because I couldn't believe that he was gone, because I was so looking forward to him playing with the Celtics. Because in college, he was probably a little better than Jordan, but like everybody says, the only one that could hold Michael Jordan down was Dean Smith because of his style of play. But that game that Len Bias had against Maryland down at North Carolina was one. I don't know if you guys remember that game or seen it, but that was one of the best performances I've ever seen. And he was just tremendous. I was looking forward to him just going in the NBA and just rocking their world, man.
Yeah, this photo kind of shows it. You see the look on Jordan's face versus Len's relaxed, and Jordan's like stressing over this one.
All up in him. Len's looking at him like, get off me, man.
Yeah, what could have been on that one? And was that like you said, you were at a low, and did that enter your mind in terms of like, oh, like what did he do wrong? What happened with him in terms of?
I was thinking, because he seemed like, I didn't know any history about him. I never heard about him partying or doing anything like that. It was a shock to me. I thought what probably happened was he got drafted number 1 by the Celtics, and some of his guys in his group, they were partying that night and said, here, take a hit. And they might have had some really powerful stuff. And it might have been the first time he ever took a hit and his heart blew out. That's the only thing I could think of, unless he had a secret life kind of that nobody knew about.
Right.
That was just seeing his mom and everything. Just, oh my goodness, that was just.
Yeah. What you said is amazing, dude. Remembering where you were for this event was like, it's a legit. Real thing. Where were you when Reagan got shot? Because I remember.
Yeah,
I was 15 years old at my house, and my mentor called me, and I was like, no way, dude.
Yeah.
And that probably changed for you, Doug. That was your thing, or like the not drinking, the not doing, like this in terms of my age. This changed us in terms of like your thoughts on drugs, because you're like, oh my God, if it could kill Len Bias, because this is the first time I ever saw my brother, who was my idol as a kid, cry like in tears, and I was like, wait, what? Like, what's going on?
I was different, TW. I was trying to get to like 6'2" or 6'3". Gus didn't have that problem.
No,
I thought if I smoked weed, it would like stunt my growth, or drank beer. So I'm like, I'm not doing. I'm just trying to get every centimeter out of my height.
Every advantage you could. That's awesome. Though.
I had to stretch out. Oh, what's this?
This is the UMBC. Retrievers going up. Where were you? What do you remember? What were you going through?
I was at my business, my pub. I opened my restaurant and pub. We had all the big screens up. I picked them, dug all the way in the. I had a big bracket game going on down there, brackets boards, Yeah, man. We picked games, and I was going, y'all better take Virginia. We were going, this is our year. I mean, the whole place was in shock after that. I mean, I was like, but you know what? More guys came up to me and they were like, well, that's unbelievable, this and that. And it was powerful upset. But games like that can happen to a great team like Virginia was. A team can get hot. A team that's not highly recruited players, or from a city program that's real good or something, but didn't get a chance to go to a major school, maybe because of grades or maybe because coaches didn't think they were good enough. They play a game against the number 1 seed like that with a chip on their shoulder. And all of a sudden, every jumper you take starts going in. And they just played their game of their life that day. And unfortunately, every NCAA 64 now. We're going to have to see that at the beginning promos all the time. But we'll also get to see what happened with Kyle and Ty and everybody. So as a redemption year the following year. So
Yeah.
Taylor,
But like Gus, what you said is so perfect. Look at number 11. I remember I think he was one of the stars of the game. How confident does he look? He's like, all right,
right.
I'm on a poster here. The ball's out here. I can control it. It's just their night. It was just
in
their
that
night.
picture to me, he looks like Trey. When you first put it on, I didn't recognize the uniforms right away, and it looked like Trey Young or somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the Virginia player wasn't all the way in the picture when I first saw it. I'm thinking, oh, that looks like Trey Young from the Hawks or something. And
Right.
yeah, he looked so relaxed, like it's normal for him.
So relaxed, nothing to lose, right?
And then that leads to this next one, Tony
Oh.
Bennett.
Oh,
Screaming.
Coach Bennett. Yeah, that seeing him yell out that scream like that. Can you imagine after the whole year, and to the route, the games they had to win to get to that point. I mean, my goodness, what a great guy he is. What a great moment for him and Virginia fans and that team. And Tony Bennett is a class act as I've ever seen in my life. I think he's probably easily the top, if not top 2 coaches in America. And I wouldn't trade him for anybody right now. His system fits perfectly for the guys he recruits at Virginia.
Yeah.
And hey, I wanted to tell you, I also, they imploded University Hall, you guys know, and so it's no longer another arena I played in that's no longer standing. Even McNichols Arena, the brand new Nuggets arena that we opened up back then when you showed that picture, is gone, and they have a new arena, the Pepsi Center or something. But I have one of the chairs from University Hall, one of the bleacher seats that has Virginia painted on one side and the number 1 on the other side that they sent us when they imploded the seats there. And my brother, his company, his waste management and removal company, got the contract because there was asbestos in that building to remove the asbestos. And my brother's company he bid and got the contract for it. And they were going to throw all his chairs away or something, or raffle them off or something. And I think it was Coach Bennett or Barry. I'm not quite sure who it was, but they wanted to make sure that, that I got one. And,
Awesome.
my brother took it from U-Haul and got it up here to me, and I got to sit in it the night of the national championship game.
Oh, wow.
We won at the pub. Of course, everybody wanted to sit in it because I had it down there as a memorabilia piece with all the other stuff we had down there. And
that's
so it was
cool.
a great thrill to get that too.
That's cool, Gus. So they give stars like you a chair, and they give guys like me a brick.
You got a brick. I got a piece of the floor too. I did get a piece of the floor.
I did get the floor. I got the floor as well.
Yeah. That leads to this next one, Minneapolis. You kind of answered this question. I was going to say, here's Ralph and Malcolm and a bunch of guys. But where were you for the championship?
That's Justin, right? And Anderson?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, I love the way he plays. I really hope is he on the team right now currently in the NBA?
He is with the G League, Brooklyn Nets G League team.
Somebody needs to bring him up because
Absolutely.
That guy is intense. He is so intense. Okay, you're going to have to tell me a little about this picture. I know, is that Matt back there?
So we got Joe Harris back there.
Oh,
this
Joe,
is Justice Bartley. This is Roger Mason. This is Devin Hall. This is probably a wealthy donor, white guy.
Okay.
And
I
this
see.
Bronco Mendenhall.
Yeah, the football coach.
Okay, yeah.
Football coach.
Okay, I didn't see Ralph. My screen wasn't wide enough.
Yeah,
I see
Ralph.
all these guys. How about that? Wow, what a great picture. Oh, man. Wow.
Obviously.
How about Joe Harris, too, man? He's balling up in New Jersey, huh?
Isn't he?
Making a lot of money, too.
Incredible.
I love Justin Anderson, man. I was when he got hurt in the ACC tournament that year, I said, man, that's going to cost us. I think we lost to Syracuse that year or something when they came back on us. If we'd have had Justin, we'd have been in the Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that kid.
So you said you watched the game at home, the championship?
No, the championship game I watched down at Gus's Pub and Restaurant
Oh, okay.
here in town. Yeah, we had a packed house. And everybody was screaming, of course, because they knew my team that's what I wanted to win. And I had, we had a group came up from Pittsburgh, a Virginia basketball club that they have in Pittsburgh. Some of their members drove 45 miles, 50 miles up here to Uniontown.
Oh, that's awesome.
Watch the game and everything. So we had a lot of Virginia stuff going on the walls and tables and stuff. And
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
we had Bud Light orange beer for everybody who drank. And
And you said that pub is no longer, right? You said
no. My wife and I gave it up last October.
Okay.
It was too much. It was nice, and we lasted 3 years, but we would have been closed now anyway with the pandemic because everybody's been out of business 3 months up here, and we wouldn't have survived. So I'm kind of glad that we got out when we did. Yeah. I have an easier life now.
Here's this next one.
Somebody taking off the dunk. Who is that? Is that Drummond?
Yep.
That's Al Drummond. Yeah. You know what? I thought the orange. I can. It's a black and white picture, but I can tell those are orange low cut cons. And he's like,
Yeah.
many people
right.
wore those, and he had the fro too. Al Drummond. He was very athletic and could play, but Al had something mentally going on with him that just wasn't quite right. I don't know if he being the first African American on a basketball team, he should get a lot of credit for breaking that barrier because he endured a lot of stuff.
Doubt.
Just like the guys on the football team, the first guys from when I was there, Ken Merritt, Harrison Barnes, and Rainey, and those guys, they were trailblazers for everybody who came there, and they endured a lot of stuff. I can remember Al waking up sometimes, and there were some nasty things written on his door of his apartment and stuff like that from other students that didn't like the fact that he was at Virginia, and he just took it all in stride. Though he was from New York, and he upstate New York a little bit, and he really didn't let it bother him, and that was bothering him.
That literally was my question.
Stopping him from being a more productive player than he was, because he was so talented and quick, especially defensively. That was his strength, but he could also score. He just never wanted to shoot the ball. He never wanted to shoot. He seemed so timid all the time. He didn't go to mine or Wally school or Barry school. None of us were timid.
Yeah, that was literally my question. That's awesome. I was just wondering how tough did you see things? Did you witness things that made it really tough for him in terms of being the first? And obviously, all respect to him.
Yes.
Very cool.
And then that
with
segues
with the sweatband.
right into this next one. This is the team. This is before. Obviously, all the stuff happened now. This is Ty's first year. They all kneeled for injustice. This is during the Colin Kaepernick injustice.
I never saw this picture.
Yeah, they all kneeled after practice one day and took this picture and posted for injustice. Then we've sort of been resurfacing this with each pod, just getting people's thoughts on.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah, how cool. How very cool. They were ahead of the game. They were with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were ahead of it. That's really nice. My hat's off to those guys.
Yeah, they kind of jumped on, but
good for them.
I was just going to say, what are your thoughts on all that's gone on?
I just say we're in a different world right now. And I'm going to have to finish up with you because my battery just dinged. It's going to go out in about a minute probably.
Okay.
Or two. But, our world is going to be a new normal, with the pandemic, with the injustices going on, with the protesting, and it's not going to stop. There needs to be some major changes made at very high levels in this country and at local county levels. And, just watching the whole NASCAR thing this morning with the noose in
it's terrible
garage. I mean, come on, it's 2020.
Yeah.
People wake up.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We're all trying to live and survive and take care of our families in this world, and people still living back in whatever age and with whatever mindset they have. It's just ruining us.
Absolutely.
So I'm worried, and I pray all the time about our world and our country, especially. And I just hope everybody that I know right now takes care of themselves and getting through this pandemic. You know, I'm at high risk age. I'm over 65, man. I don't feel it, but I am.
Yeah, I mean that's why I pinged you to make sure you're okay when we reschedule, just to make sure you're okay. So we obviously, and the last one, I know you got to go.
Yeah.
I thought this best dunker in UVA history, and we've got you in there.
Okay.
Mustafa, Travis, Watson, DeAndre Hunter, Mike Scott, Jamal Robinson, Adam Hall, obviously you, Ralph, Justin Anderson, Mama D. I mean, there's a bunch others, but we, on the forum we post these. But I just wanted to get your thoughts. Best dunker in UVA history. Who do you have?
Well, you kind of have to take Ralph out of that because he was 7'4". Okay.
Yeah.
That was like when I went against Kareem in the first slam dunk contest the NBA had, and they played one episode of it every Sunday during a game. David had a sprained ankle in Denver, and I got to go against Kareem Jabbar. And Kareem was 7'3", probably 7'5" with his afro, and I was a 6'7" white guy. The first year in the NBA at the merger, and they had the slam dunk contest, and I represented the Nuggets, and the judges were like Sam Jones and Bill Russell and all these old Celtics and guys, all friends of Kareem. And I was like doing all these crazy dunks like around my head, and there's no film of it or anything. Maybe deep in the archives of CBS or whatever somewhere, but and crazy stuff, taking it off from way out, hammering, throwing it off the board and catching it. And Kareem was like taking it around his back and like not even jumping and dunking it. Like, and he's over 7 foot. He doesn't even have to jump. And I lost to Kareem in the first round. So I got to put Ralph out of it. But look, 6'7" to 6'11" or 7 foot and below. I asked Barry Parkhill and asked Wally. I don't know if you've asked them or not, but I would have to say I haven't seen anybody quite dunk like I did.
Yeah.
There's been some great ones there, but I haven't been there to see a lot of them in person either. Sometimes where you sit right down on the floor and you watch how extreme they are.
When I watched your dunks,
I'll tell you what, if it was like somebody said, I was in my prime, and we get all those guys you named from their prime. Take Ralph out of it. I would put myself. I'll just put it this way: I would put myself up with any of those guys and say I had as good a chance, or maybe better than any of them.
I agree. You're up there, absolutely. That's how we put you on there. We're just it's hard to argue.
I don't want to sound like I'm egotistical or something. It's just that when we start talking basketball, that kicks into me about okay. You want to compare? Okay.
And then. We'll go until your phone goes out if that's okay. This next one, best point guard in UVA history. You got Jeff Jones, Corey Alexander, Sean Singletary, John Karate, Ty Jerome, Roger Mason, London Parentes, Kihei Clark, Harold Dean, Devin Hall, Majestic Map, Johnny Johnson, Ricky Stokes, Othell Wilson, Doug Fresh Smith.
Oh my God. Lord have mercy. I don't know. That's tough for me because the point guards in Coach Bennett's system, they all kind of play. My favorite, I'll tell you, is Ty. To be honest with you, I fell in love with Ty watching him play. Like I told you, I had that street connection with him right away. That playground connection, I knew. John Crotty, was really good in my eyes, and played good in the league also. And some of the other guys that you named, I can't really remember that much. So,
Gus, focus lower right hand corner.
Doug Smith,
number
11, which you were number 11 in the ABA.
I had to wear 11. Somebody else had 22, so that was half of 22.
Doug's focus is right here in this Doug Smith.
Well, do I need to turn somewhere? Do I need to move my screen? Over here.
It's me, Gus. That's the big joke.
Where are you at? Let me see. I just
I
didn't have the picture.
Right.
Oh, there you are. All right.
With the nice hair.
Oh, Doug, I remember you. I remember you. I remember you after seeing your picture back in your playing days, of course.
Right.
Oh, these are all the guys you named. Okay. These are all. I love London Parentes too, man. I thought he was smooth.
Yeah.
So smooth.
Othell, I'll tell you something. Othell Wilson could have played in the league too if he had all his mental stuff together. It wasn't that he was a party guy or nothing. I don't know what it was with Othell, but man, he was a talented kid. I thought he was going to go to the league. I don't know what happened.
I'll tell you what, Gus. Jeff Jones never talked about his team when he was my coach. He never talked about playing Ralph, whatever. But he always said Othell Wilson was the best athlete, to go through University of Virginia. Basketball, football.
I would
I
say
thought was
I
pretty
would
cool.
agree with that. Othell was a special athlete that came there. Al Drummond had that kind of athleticism, but wasn't the player Othell was. I mean, he had that kind of athleticism. But Othell Wilson, like I said, I thought he was going to the league for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's my man Ty.
Quite a list. Ty.
If we have a second, until your phone goes down, I always do a segment, and I ask for your Mount Rushmore of Virginia basketball.
Oh.
Your top 5. You get 5, not positions.
Lord.
It's whoever you think the best 5 are.
All right.
I love that reaction. You're like, oh Lord.
Look, there's no way you can choose 5. I mean,
Right.
I would do like Barry did and put the championship team up there.
Okay.
If you made me pick, I would take these 5 and not anybody pick any other 5 and let them play us. Because I'm going to include myself, Wally Walker, Barry Parkhill, Ralph Sampson, and Malcolm Brogdon or Ty Jerome. Give me that 5, and we'll play any of the other 5 you can put together.
All right, I'm gonna take Brian Stith. Shit, then I can't go anywhere with that.
He's got one. Just Brian Stith. Championship team.
That's too hard.
Yeah, that's a great one.
No
though.
question.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you so much taking the time.
I really got to go, guys. My phone
thank
is
you.
1%, and I want to say goodbye before we cut off. So
Absolutely.
love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you, Gus. Thanks, dude.
Gus, I'm calling you because I want to talk offline more.
Yes.
Okay.
Your stories are incredible.
Dude,
Yes.
Doug has my number, and so does T-Dub.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not giving it away though. Mark's got to come get it from me.
Okay. All right.
We're exclusive.
Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me on. When will this be able to be? If I can tell my sister she can hear this.
We'll try to have it. We'll try to probably have it up by the end of the week.
Okay. Would you shoot me?
Absolutely. If anything changes,
we'll tell you.
I'll text you if anything changes.
Okay.
Either that
All right,
or latest beginning of next week.
Cool. Hey, pleasure meeting all you guys.
Absolutely.
Virtually, as they say now, or Zooming or something. But,
Whatever.
It's been cool, man.
We'll see you
Absolutely.
in Charlottesville, dude. We'll all go to a game together.
Yeah, we will.
Yes,
We will.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate
You
you.
guys bring back fond memories to me.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
super. My heart's with you guys, man. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, dude.
Oh, we'll cut you. We'll put you in the waiting.
Gus Gerrard had an illustrious 3-year career at UVA, and yet many of you have never heard of him. He was the first Who to leave school early for professional basketball. From there, his story gets complicated. His journey is happy and sad. His career was cut short by addiction, and when you hear his story, his energy, you can't, let me try it one more time. I think I messed something up with my writing. His journey is happy and sad. His career was cut short by addiction, and when you,
Great start.
and when you hear his story and his energy, you can't help but root for him. Okay. What did I fuck up here? From there, his story gets complicated. His journey is happy and sad. His career was, okay. 3. Are we still rolling?
Yep.
Sorry. 3, 2, 1. Gus Gerrard had an illustrious 3-year career at UVA, and yet many of you have never heard of him. He was the first Who to leave school early for professional basketball. 3, 2, 1. Gus Gerrard had an illustrious 3-year career at UVA, and yet many of you have never heard of him. He was the first Who to leave school early for professional basketball. From there, his story gets complicated. His journey is happy and sad. His career was cut short by addiction, and when you hear his story and his energy, you can't help but root for him. T-Dubs, this is the first time we've had somebody on whose stories were just mind-boggling, and I was blown away from some of them. When you talk about the drugs, and you talk about the talent, and you talk about his stories, fascinating and sad.
Yeah. I mean, he's like an encapsulation of what I think the 70s was, like, as weird as that is. Like, when I think about the ABA and like that, that music cuts on when you hear the highlights and the ball with all the colors, and people always do the like drug, like, I don't know, just era. Like, I don't know how else to put it. And he lived it all. Like, it's really cool. Like, I heard his name a couple of times, but not a lot. Like, he's the guy I've never really heard about and started doing research. And shout out Zach Carey, who started doing a bunch of research with us and was just like, holy cow, this guy's really led a really interesting life. And as you heard, he loves UVA. He's been with UVA from the beginning, and it's pretty cool. Like, Fresh, what did you know about him?
All I gotta say is, holy shit! This is like one of the coolest, UVA basketball players I've talked to that I never knew. And the biggest thing I get from him, not from him, are the guys that came up with him. And they all say, Fresh, you have got to get Gus Gerrard on this show. Like, they don't say you got to get Brian Stith, you don't got to get Ralph Sampson. They're like, Gus Gerrard has got to be on this podcast. And now I get it.
Yeah.
The guy's like, it's like the fish that saved Pittsburgh. He was like the ABA prototype guy, man.
He was our Dr. J.
And teaching us stuff that we didn't know about. I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, when he talks about hitting rock bottom, I felt so badly for him. And his story is so amazing. Clearly, he was an amazing, amazing player. And he was living that party scene, T-Dubs. Like, I'm thinking Studio 54, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Those people that partied. And he's on the top of the world. And he loses it all to where he's ready to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And how he recovers is so incredible. And I felt such great energy from him.
Yeah, I hope people really
changing his life.
Taking the time to listen to this one. I know it's long, but I think it's worth it. And I don't know if we break it up. We'll talk about that. But it's like this is a good one. I think maybe it should stand on its own, and just we hope people will listen to the whole thing because it's pretty good. It's actually amazing. So I hope you guys take the time to listen to it.
Yeah. Last thing I'd like to add, it's so obvious he's such an incredibly giving person. Throughout all we talk about, no matter what, he was like a giving human being, Yeah. And he continues to be. So that to me is very cool.
Yeah, he just seems like a guy who loves life, right? And he paid the consequence for that too, but he also like reaped a lot of the rewards, and he sounds like he had a fascinating, incredible life that we're fortunate to hear about and learn from. And it's pretty cool. Done.
All that.